Welcome to the regular city council meeting. We are glad to have all of you here with us tonight on February 25th. This promises to be a pretty long meeting, so we will get moving in this as soon as possible. And calling this now to order, clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Harkey,
Here.
Vice Mayor Stewart,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Ellis,
Present.
Councilmember Orlando.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight, our invocation will be brought forth by Pastor Mark Rossington of Epiphany Lutheran Church, and our Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Christine Ellis. Pastor, welcome.
Thank you. Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for the blessings that this city offers to us. Major employers and excellent city departments, including our police and fire departments. We thank you for the excellent city parks and recreational facilities that we enjoy as residents. And we thank you for a city government that's held in high esteem. We pray for our city council tonight that you give them wisdom to govern amidst conflicting interests, compassion for those who suffer economic distress, that they would uphold justice and mercy, and work together in harmony where there is disagreement. And finally, we ask for an end to this pandemic. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag.
Of the United
Pledge
States
allegiance to the flag
Republic
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Councilmember. Pastor, I saw you gave equal allegiance to fire and police.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's good. Pastor Rossington also serves as the chaplain to our fire department, so thank you for your ongoing service there as well.
Very well.
Next on our agenda tonight is a briefing. We have from our Citizen Bond Committee Executive Summary by Chairman Boyd Dunn. Council, as you know, we had a very diverse and group of voices, a large group of voices that came together for this bond committee, chaired by former Mayor Boyd Dunn, who's now serving in this capacity. So without beleaguering this, Chairman Dunn, thank you, and share our report.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and the council for your vision in terms of bringing so many citizens together. I think it probably set a record for the Valley in terms of how many citizens got together and really worked hard in making recommendations and to help you make the final decision. So I'm glad to say this will be the final update of the Citizen Board Exploratory Committee. And I'm very excited about going through the highlights of our final resolution of issues. As you know, you received an executive summary already in writing with much more detail. I promise to go through as quickly as I can and just hit the highlights. But first of all, the Citizen Exploratory Committee, as you know, is made up of two entities. One's a steering committee of 7 individuals, and then we have 7 subcommittees of 7 individuals with each one representing some 49 citizens that have been involved in this process. And that has made it certainly very exciting to be with. And the steering committee is made up by the chairs of all these subcommittees that are in the areas of finance, parks, public works, public safety, facilities, airport, and information technology. I'd like to introduce the chairs. Many of them are here, either personally, and I think they're all here, either personally or by virtual appearance. And these individuals did an outstanding job of working with their respective areas, working with the steering committee, and really helping us to bring together a consensus to bring back to this council. We have Trinity Donovan with public safety. If you could stand, if you're here, Mark Gildersleeve with IT. And we have Ron Harden, public works. Ted Huntington with parks. Nina Mullins with facilities. And David Spearling with airport. And Trinity is with us virtually. So these individuals really were the core of working with these issues and bringing these recommendations to you. Yes, please. and I certainly appreciate them. As you can see, it was a 7-month process of working through these issues, starting in September with the initial meeting of the steering committee. And then the subcommittees got together, and this is where they had some fun. They went out and toured the facilities. They heard from the directors. They talked to various individuals in the community. And they worked up wish lists. And we encouraged them to come and bring up wish lists with their own ideas, with the ideas of council through the CIP and various other items. And we received those. And then the work changed by looking at the numbers. And the recommendations went to the finance committee. And the finance committee looked very carefully at the financial constraints, looking at the capital structure, looking at how many projects we can do financially and stay with a goal of being able to do as many projects as possible without any increase in either the primary or the secondary property taxes. The public communication was a process that occurred quickly. CAPA launched the public information campaign in November after talking to all the various members of the subcommittee. A new section on the city's website was created to be a hub for all information at chandleraz.gov/bond election. All agendas, minutes, any presentations made to any subcommittee is on that site. So everything every subcommittee did and the steering committee itself is on that website for the public to look at. Social media posts and articles were released in November, and then additional information will of course go on this website as the council does its job, and certainly during the campaign if the council sends this to the voters. So this is a very important tool, and we got some good public feedback through this website. Now, the city of Chandler bond history is interesting. I actually forgot about some of these bond elections. We've had 3 most recently in 2000, 2004, and 2007. Some of them were 3 years or 4 years apart, and obviously 2007 has been 13 years. But you can see the bond elections were done during the periods of enormous growth. And as a matter of fact, Councilmember Lander, you probably remember some of these bond elections. I was mayor for 2 of them, and I was on the council with 1. So they were important items to deal with what we felt were the need to provide for facilities for our citizens during our growth. Now we're looking at not only dealing with new facilities for build out, but also looking at improving the existing facilities. And we certainly don't have a bond election as high as in 2007, but thank goodness we have an amount there the voters approved. We have some authorization remaining. If you look at the bond history, you can see where we stand. We do not, as a city, and the council well knows this, that using debt is not the way we pay for everything. Impact fees were a major contributor over the years, and we certainly find other ways to provide for our growth. So Chandler sits on the far left side there in terms of using bond authorization since 2000. And our success rate in terms of voter approval is high, and certainly a couple of communities had some issues in having the voters approving the requests of their councils. The committee recommendations have 5 areas. It's come down to only 5. In parks, in fire, and police, and facilities, and streets. And you can read those numbers. They're significant numbers, but the numbers that have been honed very carefully to make certain that we can provide as many projects as we can and still be under that financial constraint of having no increase in property taxes. Now, the committee recommendations, if you look at the charts on the right side, you can see how these things developed. As I indicated, the subcommittees reviewed and evaluated 80 possible bond projects totaling $852 million. That's a lot of projects. And you can see how that pied out or divided out in that initial representation. Then the subcommittees prioritized the projects using A or B lists as long-term needs. And then the subcommittees members had the opportunities to add projects they felt were important to the community. And then recommendations was finally made, including 52 projects totaling $403,747,000. And then this is where we had to look at what we needed a new authorization based on the fact that we had prior authorization, and that's how we arrived at the $272 million figure. That'll be the final figure. So you can see the work of the subcommittee and certainly the steering committees in terms of starting at $850,000 worth of projects and coming down to $272,000. That represents a recommendation that does not increase primary or secondary property tax rates. That language is in bold for a purpose. Let's review what the various subcommittees did, and I'll quickly go through their priorities. If you have any questions at any time, please let me know. The Parks Committee, subcommittee, looked at several goals. They wanted to maintain existing parks, so there'll be projects in there that improves the existing parks that we have as a city. They want to complete the construction of regional parks. That was a high priority. They had a very high priority for A.J. Chandler Park renovation. They felt that even though this was downtown, it was a park that could be used for events and citizens throughout our city. Downtown represents a collection area for our citizens. And this is only a first phase. And they were convinced that the first phase will deal more effectively with a renovation of the park. Instead of rebuilding, they'll be building new and also dealing with some safety issues. The completion of Mesquite Groves Regional Park was extreme high priority in the sense that this was approved in 2007 in the bond authorization. And so they are insisting that we complete phases 2 and 3 in that last regional park that we have in the city of Chandler. And then Foley Park renovation has a number of renovations that they feel were critical, and that was included, and that's certainly a historical park for the city.
Mayor?
Yes, please.
Member Orlando.
This mayor and then that mayor. How's
Yeah.
that?
Yes, Mayor, Councilman.
Mayor, thank you. Hey, a couple of things, and I know if you can't answer, so I'll ask Dawn this because they're a little more detailed, but does the authorization from previous bond elections, do they expire once we do this new one, or we continue with those?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, it does not expire.
So good. So we still have that balance of dollars left that we could actually utilize.
Yes, that is
And that
correct.
was included in this equation?
It is. On that slide, it does show the remaining
Right.
amount. And then what the delta is what we're asking to be included in this election.
Got it. And then the second question, former mayor, how's that?
That's okay.
Good friend of mine.
Good friend,
Did,
that's great.
did we do we have a list of the items that didn't make the cut, and will that be included in this? So it's just a FYI.
List that made the cut or
Did not make the cut.
did not make the cut? I'll be referring to some of those items
Good,
going
okay.
through. Obviously, we're listing the items that definitely made the cut to emphasize the fact that we focused on, or the committees felt
Sure.
that those were the critical items. But well, I can certainly get more information to you as those items did not make a cut. I'll mention a few of those as we go through the
Okay.
committees.
Oh, thank you. And then real quick, my third question is up
Yes.
to you as well. I appreciate it. I noticed in the parks, do we have some sustainability and environmental concerns when we looked at these parks from the renovation aspect of it?
Well, I think that could be answered by staff, but I think
Okay.
the subcommittee felt very important that some of these parks had to be sustained and
Right.
improved, and that's why a section of the bond authorization will deal with that.
And from environmental concerns, things like that as well?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, on any project, environmental concerns are also reviewed. So certainly that's part of it as well. And I did want to clarify that any of these project lists that are being presented for each category, there's a column on the very right-hand side that will tell every project discussed is listed. And if it's in the bond authorization or if another funding source or a
Right.
future bond election is being recommended.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
And yes,
And-
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, you can see that in the Parks Subcommittee,
Right.
where a portion of Foley Park is extended out because we felt that there were certain improvements that needed to be done in Foley, and I believe that was a more elaborate redesign of the pool facility that we felt could be dealt with later.
Sure.
You know, I think there was certainly an attitude of wanting to do everything, but again, to be able to do it on a fiscal basis and to avoid any sort of tax impact, we had to make choices.
Chairman Dunn, City Manager, and I, correct me if I'm wrong, but so for Councilmember Orlando and the rest of us, all the projects were listed in the document that was sent to us, and those that passed the grade as well as the overall list that we can look back and peruse. Is that correct?
Mayor, that's correct,
Okay,
yes.
good, thank you.
Yeah, you'll see other examples where there's more items on the far right-hand side. Those are the items that did not make the cut and are being represented perhaps for future bond authorizations.
Great.
Library projects, as you can see here, there's only a portion that the steering committee felt would be necessary for the immediacy in terms of improving the parks, and there's remaining authorization for future years. And I think that's an important item to keep authorization that can be used by this council in the future. Public safety, first of all, fire. The subcommittee toured the fire stations 282 and 281, public safety training center, and several response vehicles. And there are two items that came to the forefront. One was to rebuild Fire Station 282 on existing footprint. I don't know if that is that Fire Station number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, that's how I refer to it, but 282. And we heard, I'm certain you know, Council, and a lot of what I'm saying here you are well aware of. That's one of the highest used facilities in the East Valley, and it's certainly out of date in terms of the size and facility. And then the committee made a very important decision here, the subcommittee, to rebuild, and the steering committee, to rebuild Fire Station 284 versus a renovation due to ongoing maintenance costs. So we felt that was rebuilding that would be critical. But you can see here there are some other funding sources for future bond election that's on the far right, but the majority of the requested projects were included under this bond authorization. With public safety, with the police subcommittee, the subcommittee toured the Public Safety Training Center, the police main station, and several response vehicles. And they felt the highest priority was for a new forensic services facility to allow for new specialties to be developed. And I think through a tour of the police station, they saw how cramped the current forensic areas are, and that we're so limited as a city in terms of being able to investigate all possible crimes. So this is going to be a standalone facility that'll be built next to the evidence storage facility. And you can see it is a pretty high number of $38 million, but that's including the building and of course the infrastructure or the necessary equipment, I'd imagine. But what that also does, it will allow for the expansion of the Communication and Investigation Bureau into the existing forensic section space. So we'll give those important facilities, communication, 911, and other departments included in our present headquarters to be able to have more room to expand. So these are the listed items for the police department. I made note that the one item here that's on this far right-hand side is a detention facility. Councilmember Laniu brought that up last time. This is something we wrestled with enormously, especially when I was told by the police chief that Scottsdale has one. I said, well, we've got to have a bigger one. But really, one of the things we realized, and we stayed true to the policies that this commission has set, is that if we do anything, the operation and maintenance has to come along with the item. And we found out that that was $3.3 million in additional operation and maintenance that'd be immediate in terms of hiring extra personnel. And that did represent an increase in the primary tax. I believe that in discussing this with the department, that there's a feeling that our partnership was a very positive one, can continue with the city of Gilbert for a number of years without any issue. And that certainly is an improvement for having to go downtown in terms of detention. And that's probably important for Gilbert also to have our partnership for the time being. So it's a matter of timing, and this council can certainly provide for the detention center when appropriate, and certainly when the operation and maintenance and the budget allows it to occur. Any questions at all?
Yeah. Doing a great job, sir.
Okay. Facilities Subcommittee. This is a subcommittee that worked off of a recent facility assessment of 47 city facilities, discussion centered around the facilities with the greatest needs. And the top 7 facilities needing improvements were included with the highest recommendation. And this is going to be a new ballot question, never on the ballot before, in terms of dealing with facilities and the need to make certain that our existing facilities will continue to have a useful life. And some of those facilities will include the Performing Arts Center, the libraries, City Court, Boys and Girls Club, and the like. And that's what's included in that the authorization. And this was a balanced approach, both bond funded and cash funded. The city, I was glad to certainly in the subcommittees, we're glad to hear that we do have cash available on some of these items. So that helped out. The public
Vice Mayor,
yes.
Thank you, Mayor Dunn. I appreciate the insight. On the last item, the facilities subcommittee, we had a meeting a few months back, city manager, about doing an analysis of maybe downsizing some of these since we're moving remote work and things like that. I don't think our bond committee would have had privy to that information, or maybe they did. Is that going to be factored into this, or is this something maybe we should table for a later date, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, through the mayor, vice mayor. So the space utilization study that you're speaking of is currently going through the RFP process, and then it will be coming to council for award for the consultant to take a look at that. And but with this process, the facilities that are going to be focused are the ones that we know for sure are going to need to stay. Center for the Arts, things like that. So it is definitely focused on that piece. But as Chairman Dunn did say, there is some flexibility because we moved a big portion of that to cash. So that gives council a lot of flexibility into the future, depending on how that space utilization study comes out at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. I think that's a good point. There is flexibility in all these projects for the council to make the final decision as to the projects, even with the authorization. What we felt our responsibility was to show the authorization possible in each category under the financial constraints that we have. The Public Works Subcommittee, the subcommittee used projects in the current CIP as part of the recommendation. And to a large degree, we had the benefit of what the council has done most recently, not only the updated CIP, but also, as I'll talk later about the updated transportation plan that was done in 2019. Those factors gave a lot of information as to what your priorities were, and they were incorporated by the subcommittees. They focused on the transit, the active transit, the streets projects from recent transportation master plan that are now included to the CIP, and the finance subcommittee evaluated the transit projects. And you can see there's 2 transit projects that have been placed on the far right-hand side. But if you look at the amount that we can do, not only in the transit area, but also in active transit, that we understood from the council was a priority in terms of citizens wanting to be able to have more bike paths and things of that sort, that was incorporated. So again, a balanced approach, bond funded versus cash funded. With the other public works projects, obviously streets have always been a priority in every bond question we've had. And we wanted to continue that with the expansion of arterial streets, the reconstruction to increase the capacity of intersections and improve safety, and to complete collector streets where there is no developer participation anticipated. And you can see all those projects are under the bond projected amounts. With regard to storm sewer projects, they're all included. So that, of course, reduces flood risk in downtown. That was a high priority, and other miscellaneous improvements. With regard to public works on the utility side, this was a unique development. The subcommittees understood, and the steering committee learned that capital needs are funded by issuing bonds, but the debt is spread to the ratepayers over time, which allow current and future users to pay for the systems. And that's what is so acceptable to citizens. They know that everyone's paying into the cost of building those very expensive capital items. But we also learned that the revenue obligation and excise tax revenue obligation, ETRO bonds, are an alternative to the financing tool that do not require voter approval. And that has been used by the city most recently. And Chandler has used ETROs over the last few years to fund utility projects. So the recommendation is to use revenue bonds and ETROs for utility projects. So there are no projects under the bond authorization for general obligation voter approved bonds. Information technology was a new area, and we learned quite a bit about the importance of fiber optic in the city of Chandler. Certainly we focused on a single project. A recently completed fiber assessment was the main discussion topic done by the subcommittee and the steering committee. And the finance subcommittee evaluated financial options before recommending to shift an entire fiber project to cash funding. And cash was freed up essentially freed up from moving the fire station 282 rebuild from a cash funded to a bond funded project. So this allows technology to be our needs in terms of fiber, by our understanding, to be met, and does not require voter-approved general obligation bonds. The airport subcommittee also made a little detour. The subcommittee unanimously stated that the Cooper Road collector improvement was the highest priority. And the Cooper Road project is already included with the Public Works bond package with airport subcommittee's full support. And the other decision that was made is that there was a decision made by the subcommittee, a unanimous one, to the steering committee to recommend that a bond project to extend runway for R22L was premature. And that should not go to the voters at this time until there's further development around the airport. And they feel very strongly that Cooper Road will provide that development on the other side of the airport to make the airport more viable, both in reality and perception. And the subcommittee recommends the additional analysis and economic impact studies be completed prior to the bond question for runway extension. So you can see that all these items, still very important items to be done in the airport, are going to be made through largely through local match or cash, grants and cash. So that has certainly taken a major turn. In terms of financial considerations, I will state that it is your policies as a council that made an enormous difference to the citizens of Chandler. They're very impressed with those financial policies and the fact that they've been followed for so many years. They're impressed by the city of Chandler maintaining a AAA bond rating from all the rating institutions. This correlates to a lower taxes and utility rates for residents. They also understood that future capital infrastructure needs exceed remaining bond authorization. And they followed the council guidelines to minimize the increase in property taxes, to maintain existing infrastructure, to finish planned construction of streets and parks, to limit new projects adding ongoing operation and maintenance, and to address public needs. If you look at the property tax rate comparison to other cities in our community, you can see that we're sitting in a very comfortable location. Now, obviously, you know, it's property tax is something that we always want to keep an eye on as elected officials, but it's in a position that I think that will not change. That's the important thing, will not increase based on the bond authorization in any way. Now, with these financial considerations, you can see this graph. It's an important graph that meant a lot to the steering committee. The secondary tax rate levy pays the principal and interest on GO bonds. And to achieve a no tax rate increase, it requires a balance between assessed values and tax rates. And the city has been very careful to not construct new facilities or projects without dedicated ongoing revenues to maintain them. So this chart shows the impact of bond projects to the ongoing O&M. And the middle dark blue line is a recommendation from the steering committee. This option will not increase property tax rates based on current projections and assessed value and other items. This next chart is a very interesting one to show how important it is to worry about the operation and maintenance costs of any project. The ongoing revenues, must be available certainly for capital O&M increases. And the level of ongoing O&M available is determined by including other anticipated operational needs. And the chart reflects why certain projects were removed from final recommendation due to the increase of property tax rates they would cause. And you can see these two major arrows. You can see what would happen if the Central Chandler Transit was added, because what you're looking at is and I'm not very good in colors, is the adjusted CIP O&M for bond election recommendation is the first bar and not the second bar. I believe that's kind of a red, correct? And the blue is what we're trying to avoid. And you can see what would happen if the Central Arizona Transit was included. And you can also see what would happen if Northern Chandler Transit was included with a detention center. The O&M would go far above that line. So that line allows us to keep both the primary and the secondary tax rates as they are. So with the ballot questions, I will not review each one, but I'll say a few general items. These ballot questions were reviewed extensively by the steering committee with the legal counsel. We found out, and it was part of an education, that a lot of this language is more or less boilerplate. But it's important to be at least identifying each of these items clearly enough, but with enough leeway to allow the council to bring in projects that would be clearly included. No one would say that it was not necessarily within these categories. If we were very specific about each and every project, then we would have a problem in going anywhere else, and including anything else in that circumstance. Now, obviously realizing that during the campaign, we're going to be out there telling people about the specific projects, obviously, whoever handles that campaign. And so all those projects will be clearly understood by the voters. This is what they'll see as a ballot question. So you have that for certainly municipal facilities bonds, for the park and recreational improvements, for the public safety and fire bonds, the public safety and police bonds. One note here, there was a lot of discussion of adding both police and fire together. And not that the police and fire can always, they certainly can work together at all times. And part of the concern was that some of the other bond questions were higher than public safety. And people would be wondering, why are we spending more on parks necessarily than on public safety? But we came to the conclusion that historically we've always had separate ballot questions, including both police and fire. So there's no confusion as to what voters are approving. So they've remained separate. And I think it won't be a problem. I mean, people can certainly add those two entities together if they want to know what the total public safety portion was compared to others. And then the public works ballot question, and then that concludes it. So now we're looking at, passing the baton to the council, and certainly look forward to your analysis of the recommendations, and certainly be available to any questions that you have. But this is certain timelines we've been told by staff and by legal staff as to how we can get to the point of having this placed on the ballot for the November election in November 2 election in 2021. And that's basically what the steering committee felt was our recommendation to do. And I'll say again, council, with this process, I thank you for allowing myself and the citizens to be so involved. We have grown in the appreciation of what you have to do as elected officials. We've grown in the appreciation of what the city means. We appreciate the history and how consistent we've been in our financial policies. And we appreciate allowing so many of your citizens to be involved in making these recommendations to you. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Yes, I'm sure there will be. I'd like to start just with a question. Number one, a thank you to you. And I do notice there's a couple more who weren't chairs, but served on the committees. If you'd please raise your hand or stand if you were part of our bond committees. So thank you for joining us as well tonight. And thank you. This has been a lot of work. You've given us a good piece to go forward with. And I'm confident that we can bring this to the voters and with our community come on the other side successful. So I'm very pleased with the work that you've done. And council, if there are other items that come forth, we are certainly not hamstrung by any means to come forth with another bond if there's changes in our finances or decisions that would warrant that. So if there are things that were not part of this, whether it's a few years or a few more years, we have the availability to go out and get this again. And then one other question, and maybe for Dawn, I want to thank you on this part in terms of securing that this would result in a higher primary or secondary. And this really almost exclusively in terms of the projects would come out of secondary. But obviously, Director Dawn, we've got other decisions that we can make that are part of our, you like that, Director Dawn? So, yeah, that certainly are part of our primary tax, whether it's the budgets that we pass, the number of employees that are part of the figure. So this gives us a good baseline, and I know we've been it's served us well as a city to be fiscally sound, and this is part of that projection. Am I correct on that, Dawn?
Mayor, that is correct. We have taken into account through our ongoing general fund forecast, all of those other expenditures we have on an annual basis to determine what would be available for capital improvements.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So we've got ongoing decisions that will also keep us, on true to our mark. So again, thank you. I know that Vice Mayor started off, you got a question? And then we'll work this side and then this side. So,
And Mayor, if I could just respond to a couple of items.
thank you.
One is you're going to have an opportunity to thank the subcommittee members even more so, I believe, on March 1st. March 1st, we're going to have a meeting and a reception, and I know the subcommittee members want to be there and want to be able to be here and just thank you again for allowing them to serve. I think that the challenge we had as a recommending body, of course, we didn't make the final decisions, was to put as many projects in the pot as we could. And we have 80 projects, I believe. Is that the total? Yeah, something of that sort. But we put us, and thanks to the help of our staff, especially Dawn and her staff, city manager, we're able to find ways to get as many projects in this bond authorization and keep the numbers at the proper level by looking at the sources and by looking at the priority of things. And I think the 49 people involved were so impressed with that I was surprised because we had so many projects to begin with. It was a consensus, unanimous vote of the subcommittee that these projects were the right ones to do at the present time. But again, only a recommendation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman. And I want to personally thank everybody that served on your commissions as well. I mean, it's a volunteer role, and it's recognized by not only everybody here, but the community as well. So thank you very much. I have a question about the language is there a process, will there be a time when we work in maybe a smaller group where we're looking at the language that's actually on the ballot, or is that already a done and final?
No, I believe what we're proposing is just suggested language that can be, certainly it needs to be approved by the council. So I was explaining how I dove into it quite a bit thinking I could, I guess with my legal background, come up with different language. But our bond counsel is I think the best presentation is to hear from the bond counsel as to why this language is important, not only to be able to meet the legal requirements, because there's some strange requirements in the legislation language we have to put in the ballot, of course, regarding an increase in property tax when there is none. But to make it very clear in the language what that is involving, all the various categories, but also give you the leeway of not being stuck. And the one lesson I learned was perhaps with the waste transfer station. This is a project that was specifically listed in the bond question to the extent that we can never use that authorization, correct? Or are we, maybe legally we're trying to, but it becomes a legal issue to use it for other items if you're very specific as to the project, especially in the ballot question itself. But certainly the campaign will discuss the projects that will be involved.
And I think, sorry, man. Yeah, and I think from public perspective, we trust the commission and council to dig into the weeds on these particular projects, the 80 or some odd projects. So these overarching, parks, facilities, things like that are great, so people understand what their tax dollars are going for. Will there be any language in there that identifies, so if we don't pass this, what will be your household savings per month or per year if this doesn't go through? What will their property tax drop? Because people are experiencing some increased taxes because of the valuation of their homes. People that are on fixed incomes, that their Social Security isn't rising as fast as their property values. And so holding rates is great. I mean, it's from a percentage perspective. But I'm just curious, will there be anything in the bond language for the vote to say if you vote no, this is the savings this is where your tax rate will drop?
Mayor.
That's a good question. I'll pass that on to whoever
Yeah,
wants to answer.
Mayor.
City manager.
Through the mayor, vice mayor.
Yes.
So the other day, Mayor and I were discussing, I think that the mayor is going to want to probably have a future work session of council to do some digging into this. I know our bond council, although they did come and work with the steering committee, would be available to come and actually talk to council about what's legal, what's not, or the appropriate place for some of the things that you're talking about. So I think there's still some work to do. That's why you have a couple of months here to have those discussions. And I'll leave it to the mayor on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right, any other questions to my right? All right, thank you. To my left, Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to thank everybody that has volunteered, everyone that's been involved in this. Mayor Boyd, thank you for sharing this, this group of professionals and community members. I will say that I've been in office for about 6 years, and I've heard along the way people having concerns or a desire or frustration about wanting things to move forward in this community. And and I just want to say that this is the process for doing some of that, and that we're in it for the long haul. And so when I'm gone, there'll be other councils, there'll be other people that volunteer, and we are blessed at a time to see some remarkable things happen in Chandler. And I know that once I'm gone and others are gone, there'll be people that will come along and keep moving the ball and doing great things. So thank you.
I know the feeling personally, so,
Yes, you do.
yeah, it's, Councilman Rowe, it's, I can just say you're blessed by a staff that is so professional in the city in terms of providing whatever information we needed. And we asked questions and they got the information. And I think they feel very comfortable giving the information because there's a historical aspect to it. You know, what we're doing today has its roots to what other council did in the past and what other councils will hopefully do in the future. So it was just a delight to work with the staff and with the citizens on this project. So thank you.
Thank you.
I believe I heard Councilmember Rowe getting a little choked up there, didn't I? It sure sounded like it. So, yeah. Any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Orlando.
No, thank you. I want to echo, appreciate all the work and all the committees done. I know it's a lot of work, but I think as I look back in the other bond elections and I look back what's some of the polarizing discussions we're having today at a national level, even the state level, local government is the last trusted entity in my mind. And the fact that we had citizens involved, the fact that we had great leadership involved and staff, this sends a very trustful, positive message to the community that we done our homework. We eliminated things that we felt was not, B item. That's why I asked about the B list. And that, you could, as we done in other bond elections, you could trust us to be fiduciary responsible with your dollars and get the amenities you do want to see from the local government. So, like I said, I appreciate the trust you put into this. I think it's on a burden on us now to continue that trust. And then we do the bond committee of obviously take the next step for as far as, getting the election piece of this done. That again will play very large into this. So I thank you for being a trusted advisor in this.
Thank you, Councilman Orlando. And those are wise words. And I think from a local level, people have trust in their government. And the perfect example is that there were 2 bond questions that were on the 2020 ballot in the middle of COVID that passed totally across the board, both Tempe and Mesa. There was one that did not, but that's another issue. But two in the East Valley that did. And that shows that citizens trust what their local elected officials are doing and are willing to even move forward and deal with improving their city, even with the uncertainty of their lives and financially and otherwise. So I was amazed that cities actually chose that election day. They probably did sooner than when the pandemic came. But I agree with you. I think there's enormous trust, and if we do things right, and the council will certainly make those decisions in a very careful and thought out way, I think the voters will be there. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Council, next on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. We had opportunity to address these items, ask questions on Monday. Are there any questions or comments? Otherwise, a motion would be appropriate.
Mayor?
Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, I move for approval of the consent agenda for February 25th. Items 1 through 30.
All right, there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Ellis. Council, any words of, before we vote? Okay, no actions necessary. Council, please vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda tonight, we have a couple action items, and I do have a few speaker cards on both of them actually, but item number 31, I'm first going to call staff up to make a presentation. I will call up the developer to make a presentation. We'll call up those who have brought forth speaker cards. And in this time as well, there's opportunity for questions, and then we will deliberate up here. So staff, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Okay. The item before you this evening, PLH 1963 and PLT 1955, E-Lux at McQueen. This is a request for a rezoning from agricultural AG1 to planned area development PAD for multifamily residential, as well as a preliminary development plan for site layout and building architecture, as well as a preliminary plat which establishes lot lines, easements, and tracts. The subject site is located at the southeast corner of McQueen in the Santan 202. The approximate 12.8 acre site is abutted by 3-story multifamily apartments to the east. To the south, 2-story patio homes. To the west, we have McQueen Road. Further west of McQueen is vacant land currently zoned agricultural. To the north, we have the Santan 202 with single-family residential just north of that. The proposed development before you includes 162 units, equating to 12.59 units per acre. The development is a mix of 1- and 2-story attached and detached units. In the exhibit in front of you, the yellow and the red units are all 1-story, so a majority of the units are 1-story. The development is required to have 300 parking spaces. The developer is exceeding the required amount and providing 327 with a mix of covered parking spaces, uncovered, and private garages. Each unit will have a private gated backyard with a covered patio of approximately 200 square feet. The development offers many amenities, including a clubhouse, a gym, a pool, Ramada barbecue, a dog park, as well as a pickleball court. The property is accessed, has 2 access points. The main one from McQueen with a secondary access point off of Senate Place. The entry along McQueen, as part of the development, the developer, in order to obtain full access along McQueen, has agreed to install a traffic signal at McQueen and Armstrong Way under the initial phase of construction. Although this is multifamily, the proposed units act as single-family units. These are the 1-story renderings and elevations, the attached and the detached, as well as they offer a 2-story product of attached and detached. The development uses a variety of materials, including stucco, tile cladding, metal, and canopies over the front door and patio, as well as a variety of window sizes and shapes. The roof lines are broken up by a mix of gable roofs with flat parapets, and they use concrete roof tiles. Planning staff is making a recommendation of approval as its compliance or it's in conformance with our general plan, our 2016 general plan. Under this, it's designated as neighborhoods. Under our neighborhoods category, we can consider densities upward of 12 to 18 units when adjacent to arterial streets and freeways. Furthermore, the subject site is located within the Chandler Air Park Area Plan. This plan was approved in 1998. More specifically, under this plan, the land designation is considered high-density residential and permits for densities of 12.1 to 18 units per acre. Currently, the request is in conformance with the land designation as recommended in our Chandler Air Park Area Plan, as well as the surrounding land uses that are currently existing, the multifamily to the east, as well as the patio homes, the denser subdivision to the south. Because this fell in the 9 square mile Chandler Air Park Area Plan, it did have to attend Airport Commission for an Airport Commission conflict evaluation. The Airport Commission did find a conflict with the current and future operations of the airport, citing any residential within the airport causes a conflict with current and future operations of our airport. The developer is providing signage throughout the site to further let residents know that they do live close to an airport, as well as mitigation methods by putting maps within the leasing office with aerials for the map, as well as flight paths showing how close they are to the airport. A neighborhood meeting was held for the case. It was held virtually. 5 households attended. They were from the subdivision to the south horizon. A majority of them just had questions about what was being developed and what that buffer along the south property line would look like. A row of trees, a street, and then the actual units. I have received 1 phone call from a Horizon resident with concerns about traffic. On the screen, there's an arrow pointing. The resident lived 5 houses in from the intersection of Germain and Senate Place. Those homes that are built, the front doors face Senate Place with their driveways in the back, but they have guests that could park on Senate Place. The resident was concerned with the amount of traffic that this could generate. This was prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. They let me know that they were a traffic engineer and requested a traffic impact analysis that was submitted to our city engineer. I provided that to them, and after reviewing that, they no longer had concerns. As of today, planning staff is aware of no opposition or concerns. This attended the January 6th Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. It remained on the consent item, and it was recommended for approval 6-0 with 1 absent commissioner. And with that, staff is making a recommendation of approval, citing its in conformance with our general plan, our Chandler Air Park Area Plan. It's a compatible land use with the surrounding residential uses. And with that, I conclude my presentation and open the floor up for any questions.
Thank you. A little bit later, I do want to ask Micah Miranda to come up and just talk about this as other possible uses. So he'll be coming, but council questions that you might have. Councilmember Orlando.
Yeah, so can you go back to that rendition where you show the houses and the first or second one?
Sure. Do you want
I
the
got
1
two-
or the 2-story?
I want to know where the 2 stories are. No, go back to the actual master. Yeah, so the 2 stories, I can't tell from your chart here, it's too small. My eyes are not. So is A, D, C, D all single story?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, it would be best, instead of trying to read the letters, it's color coded. So the units that are red and yellow, those will be the single stories. And then the blue and then the white slash purple units, those will be the 2-story.
So they actually have the 2 stories facing the houses?
Correct.
Okay, I'm getting a nod behind you. But the other question I have is, what's the setback and for between the house and then the wall for the
Sure.
neighbors?
So from the property line, it's
Property
not
line.
measured from the back of
Yeah,
the
property line.
single family home. They're showing 36 feet, so there's 10 feet of landscaping with a row of trees, 20 foot on center, as well as a 24-foot drive aisle. And then with those units that face to the south, they're actually the carriage units. So there's garages all on the first level,
Okay,
and each of those would only have 2 units up top.
okay,
We took into consideration the amount of windows that would face to the south.
okay. And then what are the X's there, cross streets, X's? Is that just a covered parking or is that parking?
Correct, that would be covered parking.
Got it. Okay. So 36 feet from the line. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Council, other questions? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I've got a few of them. Thank you for the presentation. That was good. It was very thorough. Can you leave the plan up real quick for me, please? I wanted the layout. Yeah.
So this one?
Yeah, either one is great. Thanks. I was curious, you mentioned the stoplight. Will it be a right-only area so people can turn left in? So one of the questions I've got, I guess, is around traffic. 'Cause one of the concerns I have is like, we have people that have to get to 202, and you go up Gilbert Road, it's packed, right? You're going through Walmart and all those areas. You get up towards Arizona Avenue. There's Sam's Club. You got a stoplight there, and another stoplight. One of the easier pathways to get through is there. Is there a way that this could empty out down on Germain so to keep that traffic flowing?
So the original site plan, if I may, I guess this doesn't fully extend out. In the original site plan, originally they were supposed to take their main entry off of Senate Place.
Mhm.
When the subdivision to the south developed, Senate Place was installed by the city to allow for this property to get full access to their property. However, in order for viability and visibility, the developer requested to have a stoplight installed there. Well,
Sure.
asked for full movement. And the only way that it would be safe is the traffic engineer said if a traffic signal went in, as well as, and I should have had a better exhibit, if I was to zoom out, this would help us out regionally as well. On the west side of McQueen Road, we have a whole undeveloped area of industrial just west of the yard that would be able to tie into Armstrong, heading all the way south. We do have our traffic engineer here as well, who could answer questions.
Okay. So as it stands now, it's a left, and it's just another stoplight, just like anything. It would be great for the neighbors, like neighbors that are in there, but not so great for anybody that lives south. As it relates to the airport area plan, do we know when that's going to be presented? We're using a 1998 overlay. Lots has happened in Chandler since 1998.
I apologize. Pardon me. I was just thinking about the last comment real quick.
Yeah.
So you were saying, so by installing the traffic light, it would create a conflict versus if they were to make a turn at Germain. So instead of turning at this property, turning at Germain.
Yeah, coming in from the south.
Yeah.
It'd just be a little bit easier because I think the neighborhood just south only has a right only, right? It's better for flow and there's less stoppage, but we can move on from that. As it relates to the, and thank you. As it relates to my next question is, do we know when we're going to see the new airport area plan?
Great question. We are in the process of doing that. We were hoping, by summertime to get that before you. We actually just met with our consultant prior to this meeting, and we're in the process of getting the alternative land use document prepared and hopefully out before our hearing boards, within a couple of months.
Sure. Okay. So earlier today, I talked with Kevin Mayo and Derek Horn, our director, and the staff in front of that handles these projects. And I asked them, why are we recommending this project? And you went through a list of things as it relates to the general plan, land use, and area plan, which I'm comfortable with the land use after doing some more research. We talked a little bit about basic guidelines and current procedure or current precedent, which is around that area. Can you talk a little bit more about basic guidelines and basically where you think, and I'll ask the applicant a little bit later about rents and things like that. But can you tell me a little bit about basic guidelines, what your benchmarks were for this project as it relates to aesthetics, entryways, the type of facades, all the things that we do?
Sure.
Thanks.
Great question. Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, with regards to design, we do have a set of standards that we review it with. We want varying planes. We want a variety of materials. We don't want just square units dropped on there. So the materials that they use, they were able to push and pull. And so, hold on, get back up to that one image. If you were to see, there's a push and pull of the building, varying heights, a variety of material. This was not their first submittal. I believe this was actually like their third time around. So we have been working with them with regards to architecture, and it's a newer type of developer concept of providing like a single family type home, but yet still as a rental property.
Okay.
The applicant may be able to add more to that as well.
Okay. Can you go back to the layout?
Sure.
One of the things I noticed earlier today was, if there are any children in this, where do you play? And I'm not getting a little picky here, but I'm not seeing like places for kids to play, or I mean, it's really packed. It seems like, and we're trying to stay within a certain density and height and things like that to be sensitive to the neighbors down south, which I appreciate from the applicant. But maybe you can point that out for me.
Sure. Great question. I would have to defer that to the applicant as to why their amenities did not include a playground. But the site plan before you right here shows their circulation plan. Because each unit does have a private gated backyard, we took into special attention of what those sidewalks look like, and then the landscaped areas, providing areas where people could gather as well. But I would have to defer that one to the applicant as to why their amenities.
Okay. And I have one last question.
Sure.
Are there any EV outlets for this property for electric vehicles?
I would have to defer that one to
All
the
right,
applicant.
we'll ask him.
Sure.
Great presentation. Thank you.
Council, any other questions for current staff? Councilmember Harris.
The backyard, the gated backyard, can you go back to this slide again? I wanted to know a little bit more about how big is this gated backyard? If there was multifamily, you kind of had 2-3 kids, how big is this backyard? And maybe just thinking that maybe the builder was thinking like that is the yard to play in per se versus having a big playground. So.
And staff, would that be, again, a better question for
Okay.
to give you a more exact answer?
I'll defer my question to Brennan.
Sure.
He can write that down and get back with me on that.
All right.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have at this time, Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I would like to, before I invite Brennan up, I would like to invite Micah Miranda to give us a brief conversation about this property and before us, if we have a use, talk to us about it. So,
Thanks, Lauren. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this project or proposed project as it relates to our economic development initiatives.
well, so my question is, what we always look is what is the the best use for this. I realize best is a very arbitrary statement, but we've looked at job possibilities or other things. So again, in the site where it is, surrounded with the neighbors that it has, what are some other options that could be on this property?
Mayor, that's a really good question. And in today's market, we're seeing a lot of activity. Economy is actually doing really well. We're seeing a lot of interest from manufacturers. So at this site, I would see or envision a low density office product or flex industrial product, really in a more compact setting. So within the air park area, we've seen a lot of success over the past few years. We've had a lot of locates, especially on the freeway corridors. Freeway corridors continue to be very critical. Any sort of transportation system, whether it's rail, roads, freeways, waterways, in this case freeway, having access to that to employers is very desirable, and of course, its visibility to the freeway. So I can envision a flex industrial user wanting that freeway exposure up along the freeway.
And what would traffic look like as a difference between either small office, flex industrial, as opposed to the proposed that's here?
Yeah, Mayor. So depending on the type of use, obviously the traffic engineers have their different models that they look at. So office users and industrial users are generally on the lighter side. Without having the exact square footage of what somebody would propose for each one of those uses, I couldn't give you a traffic count per day, but it's something we could come and give you some feedback on.
Okay. Council, any other questions for Micah? All right.
I got a question.
So, Mayor,
Yeah,
sorry,
so
go ahead.
we'll start Councilmember Orlando, then Councilmember Ellis and Vice Mayor.
So I understand what you're saying about flex office, but have we seen any people knocking on the door asking to, put something there that's non-residential?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, we have received interest in that Armstrong alignment, really from Hamilton all the way over because of its vacancy and freeway exposure. We've received requests. We obviously defer it to the property representative to answer their questions on what they're looking to do with the disposition of the property, then work with them from there.
Is the value of the property conducive to building that?
I don't know the economics of what they're proposing here, but given the strong interest we've seen in the marketplace for other types of projects, yeah, I would say there would be interest in doing something along those lines, either flex industrial or office. Really
Okay.
on the flex industrial side right now.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Ellis.
Harris.
I'm sorry, Harris. Excuse me.
Goodness. So, Micah, you talked about possible light industrial use. Our general plan, what does our general plan calls for? I mean, what was it already designated for? What did we designate it for? What was it already designated for?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Harris, I'm going to invite Lauren back up. Can you talk about what the general plan calls for on the site?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Harris, our general plan on the map above or below before you, you were asking about the general plan designation. Yep, it's called out as neighborhoods. Neighborhoods is a very broad category. It allows for a variety of different densities within our general plan. There's language that states how much density is permitted within that neighborhoods. It could also consider a variety of non-residential uses such as commercial, institutional, public facilities, and commercial offices per the language of our general plan. So neighborhoods per the general plan is a very broad description.
And around the plan, currently right now, there's communities, there's buildings of residents around this particular area as well.
Correct. So we have our general plan, but this property also falls within our Chandler Air Park area plan, which is a even more specific plan, which tightens up that the types of uses that could be proposed at this location without amending this plan. And if you look, all of the surrounding land uses are residential and higher density residential.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Micah, thanks. Can you give me kind of a best practice for other cities in Arizona, or at least in the Phoenix metro area, for highway corridors and things like that? When I look at just where I know, because I don't leave Chandler for any reason, I look at the hospital that we have on Alma School. I look at the great developments that Dorito Partners have put on Gilbert Road and some other areas by the mall. As you head up the 101 through Tempe, I see a little bit more development. Is there a standard, or is there something that you all talk about as it relates to economic development for highway corridor?
Through the mayor or vice mayor, if you ask an economic developer what they would want, they would say put employment everywhere. So that's kind of our default answer, but the general preference is to put employment up against freeway corridors within the economic development world. And then I can't speak to what other cities do or what they like to do, but it's usually on a one-off cases just like this.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions for Micah?
I just wanted to make comment that perhaps there should have been more greater involvement around the community as it pertains to this particular area and property. Considering that we only had 5 individuals to reach out or to share or to speak about this particular property. I'm sure if it was being zoned for industrial, I'm sure we'll have 50 people or 100 people talking about it. So I just kind of wanted to acknowledge the fact that, residents felt comfortable with it being residential over commercial. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe our zoning attorney, Brendan, can talk about that in terms of outreach as well. Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. While we still got you there, Mike, I just have a question about, I think an example for me is Ride Now is a business that is located on the north side of the 202. It was previously located in Chandler in a different location. It almost seems like their business is almost a little odd to get into. And they had a very good location on North Arizona Avenue. So you think that despite the difficulty of getting in and out of their business, that made sense for them to do that?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Rowe, in the instance of Ride Now, I think, their neighborhood, if you will, with the other auto users creates a clustering effect, which made that site attractive to them in their individual instance.
Yeah, so the freeway was just part of that. The 202 was just part of that.
Good visibility.
All right, thank you.
All right. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Micah. I'd like to call up Brendan Ray, representing the client. State your name and address for the record, please.
Bear with me 1 minute while I load my presentation. It was so big that I couldn't do it before.
This is part of your 3 minutes.
I'm glad we all have a sense of humor. Oh, that's great. That's good. I'll give you credit for that one, Mayor. That one's good. I probably am going to need technical assistance on this one. I apologize. Magic. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Brendan Ray, 1850 North Central Avenue, here on behalf of Snowden McQueen LLC. We're certainly very excited to talk to you tonight about what we consider a high quality residential development. I have with me a number of people, and some of them have turned in speaker cards, but by way of introduction, Scott Curtis is with us tonight. He is the client and the proposed developer. Scott and his team, the Snowden team, have over 30 years of development experience, doing a number of developments throughout the valley, 40 or more, and they have considerable experience developing land here in Chandler, and excited to be back to talk to you about this. I also have with me members of the property ownership group, including Miss Nancy Burge and her daughter Barbara. And then some of you are familiar with Andy Barron, former planning commissioner here. Andy is the designer of this development and has worked hand in glove with me as we've worked hand in glove with planning staff to ensure that this meets the high quality standards that is expected for developments, and certainly a development at this location in this community. So why is this residential development on this site? And I'm going to touch on and emphasize a number of things that planning staff presented to you. But first and foremost, we're 100% consistent with every plan that's out there. We are 100% consistent and compatible with the surrounding area. We are 100% consistent with good planning principles, which sometimes planning and economic development, those are two different paths. And so I'm going to talk and focus on the planning side of things. As staff indicated and as Councilmember Harris noted, we have no neighborhood opposition. And it is by virtue of the fact, I believe, having done a number of developments in the city over my short career, that if there was problems, email boxes would be full, and this room might be obviously under COVID protocol and stuff like that. Staff, as I mentioned, we work hand in glove with them. And I think importantly, one of the bodies that you guys rely on in terms of design, in terms of quality, and I'll tell you, they're a tough bunch. And if you haven't had an opportunity to take a development through those guys, I'd encourage you to do that sometime, because they know what council's expectations are in terms of design and quality. And we went through unanimously. In fact, we were on consent. If I remember correctly, and there was compliments in terms of the design and the architecture that we received from that group. And so I think importantly, as we talk about kind of economic priorities as well, and we look at this site, this does not impact the city's stated goal of providing employment uses on employment designated land. And I've heard that for a number of years working in Chandler, and I know that particular desire of the council was emphasized at the joint retreat or the joint session between the council and commission, I believe about a year and a half ago. I think it was fall of 2019 is when that joint session took place. And so this allows us to accomplish it. Certainly familiar with the site. I'm not going to belabor that. The site and the surrounding area, obviously, you're very familiar with that. Interestingly enough, some of those developments on there, our office has had the opportunity to work on, including the San Valencia development, the Mark Taylor apartment complex. And I don't know if anyone, possibly Councilman Orlando, would have been on the seated at the time when we took that case through, and maybe even Councilmember or Mayor Hartke was at the time. But there was a lot of discussion on that one with the La Paloma neighbors. And that's that single family neighborhood that's been there a while. Also had the opportunity with Andy Barron to work on the Horizon development. So we are certainly very familiar with this area, very familiar with the neighbors and stuff like that as we look at it. It's certainly one thing to see things in plan view. And I know when we talk and present things, a lot of it's in plan view. I wanted to give us kind of a boots on the ground effect. And so this is kind of a, if it plays, and it might not, probably not going to play. And I've probably crashed the system. I had like a 5-second video.
It's a good skylight.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Lots of blue, lots of clouds. We'll skip it. I know I've been on the site with a number of you, and you know certainly the residential nature and feel of it. with the Mark Taylor Apartments and with the Lennar Horizon Community South. General plan we've talked about, Air Park area plan we've talked about. One of the plans that we haven't talked about that was approved by council followed the approval of the Air Park area plan, and that's what's known as the Santan Freeway Corridor area plan. And you can see on that, I've just took a snippet from the front page of that, and I probably should have done a Mr. Bull and brung a hard copy and waved it in front of you for those of you who know Mr. Bull. But nevertheless, that was specifically focused and studied what should be appropriately located along freeway corridors. And I can appreciate Micah's discussion about economic development wanting a lot of business adjacent to freeways. I think as all of us have traveled throughout this valley, whether it's on the 202, the 10, the 101, we see in a lot of instances there's a variety of developments that back up to it, from business and employment and stuff like that to residential. But interestingly enough, on this Santan Freeway Corridor area plan, which the area has largely developed consistent with the Air Park area plan in this one, this site is designated high density residential. So not only was it studied as part of the broader Air Park area, it was also studied in connection with the 202 corridor, and that is what it was designated as. So again, the proposal, I can go into it as much detail, and I'll circle back probably at the end on some of the design questions that I think that I received, if that's okay. But one of the things that, again, I'll emphasize is that this is a gated development with 1- and 2-story single-family homes that happen to be for rent. It lives like a single-family community, yet has the benefits of a rental development. The neighbors, again, we had 5, which I think speaks to it not being controversial from the neighbor standpoint. Take a look at this, and we're certainly appreciative that what we are proposing with this gated development afforded them a sense of privacy and a sense of security, especially for those residents on the north side as we back up to it. And Councilmember Orlando, through the mayor, I'll answer the question that you had. None of there is one home that truly faces that south, and that's AD. It's over on the left side of the screen. All of the other ones side up to it. And so it's not as if we've got a lot of eyes, because as we planned it out, there was certainly sensitivity to what occurred on the south side and the residents in those backyards and stuff. So purposefully, we've designed it to minimize the impact on those neighbors. And they were appreciative as we talked in the neighborhood meeting to them. That question of privacy specifically came up, and separation, and we were able to address that to their satisfaction. Again, I can go into as much detail about the architecture, but I can tell you that we worked long and hard with staff on the quality. We started this case, I started working on this case in August of 2019. There was a stretch there where we needed to work really closely with staff on making sure that it was livable, and that the architecture meant there. And a lot of the delay, and normally cases don't take that long, but the delay was due to ensuring that the architectural quality was there, and we believe that it is. So I want to focus really on kind of employment challenges, because as I was at the last hearing, and as I've had some discussions, I understand that question has come out. And so there's 5 things that I want to focus on as we really look at it, really from a planning perspective, that we start to look at it, that creates a number of challenges. Obviously, there's a number of site constraints, and I've highlighted those, and you can kind of see those. But the site is sunken and depressed. There's minimal exposure, not the greatest, along McQueen Road and the 202, and I've kind of identified where those kind of key opportunities for visibility are. Even going a little bit further, again, we can see it in plan view. It's another thing to see it as you're having boots on the ground and stuff like that. This is at the intersection of McQueen, kind of looking southeast as we head east. And you can see what immediately catches your eye, obviously, are those huge power poles that are out in front. Those power poles will not be underground anytime soon, and they are going to be there in perpetuity. And any developer, including ours, has to figure out how to work around it. The other thing, as I mentioned, and this is looking at the opposite side as you look back to the northwest, it is very sunken and depressed in that corner. Obviously, there's a lot going on as you travel the 202, coming over Arizona Avenue, over the railroad tracks, getting under McQueen, and then climbing back up to get over the Consolidated Canal as we kind of run along there. This is that looking west toward McQueen Road. And again, you can see there's just a narrow window of opportunity as McQueen Road elevates as it approaches the 202. This is looking northeast. And again, you can see and have experienced where there's a limitation on visibility. And again, if my video works, which it doesn't, I would be able to show you just exactly how we did it. I did that with my GoPro a couple times, making sure I, got it. But I think we've all traveled that road enough to understand that there are limitations as you travel, especially, it's easy for us to talk about it and we look at it and we drive and I look at it thinking, okay, all right. It's another thing when the general public and population just drives by. Most of them presumably are going 65, although I doubt it. And the window of opportunity for visibility is pretty minimal on that. The other thing, and Councilman Stewart brought this up, traffic, and we are very aware of the ongoing discussions for the past few years that have been taking place in McQueen Road and in McQueen Road corridor, and certainly about traffic as we look at it. We know that those discussions aren't changing soon, especially as the city and landowners a little bit further south look to development with employment uses, again, as envisioned by the various plans. So we talked to our traffic engineer and we said, hey, help us understand what an office development, the impact on that would be. I heard them talk about light industrial, and I suppose we could get the city's traffic engineer up here, but I would tell you in ranking the hierarchy of uses, an office is a more significant generator of traffic than a multifamily. Light industrial, depending on the type of light industrial development, could be the same or a little bit more. It just kind of depends on that type of use. But we looked at it, and as you can see there, the numbers clearly show that an office development would generate 2 times the amount of traffic that this development would. So that leads into other things when we talk about traffic. One of the challenges is how do you stack and queue that type of traffic to be able to turn into it. ADOT's interested in getting people off the freeway. The city is as well. And what you'll see on there is there's what I call a turquoise blue line that indicates the limit of the improvements that I would need to make to get the appropriate amount of traffic safely into the site. And you can see in that purple color where the office queuing and stacking would need to take place. And you'll note with that black dashed line that is going to require a considerable more amount of consent and cooperation with ADOT to be able to make those improvements without conflicting, as you can see there, with the traffic that's stacking to be able to go westbound on the 202. So there's some physical limitations, again, just from a planning perspective as we look at it. The other thing that we looked at is what's going to be the increase, because if I'm 2 times the amount of trips that office use will generate, you can see there. And those figures are an increase above what our development is offering. So there is a 110% increase of traffic that office would bring along McQueen Road, a 55% increase along Germain Road, and importantly, a 39%, almost 40% increase along Senate Street. And as Lauren indicated in her presentation, a lot of those homes along Senate Street actually front onto the street. Their front doors open up onto it. And so I'm confident that if we were to put a bunch of traffic up and down Senate Street, I'd have a lot more people standing in this room today talking to me about it. So we've looked at it and we've gone down, I know the question was asked and we've wanted to be thorough. Obviously from a neighbor standpoint, and I mentioned that, but I just want to touch on a few things that as it relates to planning, and this is development. I've talked about the neighbors and their acceptance of this development, but I think as we look that if this had been designated employment, as we've heard today, then that would have affected the development of a prior case. And that is, if we look at the Horizon case, and I've highlighted where those areas are, they have a 10-foot setback that is along that north property line. And you can see right here in this picture how close that is. And if you've walked it, you know it's relatively close. I can guarantee, and there's not many things I can guarantee in life, but I will guarantee that if this had been designated employment, staff would have required a significant landscape setback, possibly an open space tract, and additional setbacks from the homes themselves. So when that development went in, and I know we're not talking about that one, but the way the character and the area has shaped and led itself to be has influenced that prior case, and those homes are built here today. So I want to touch briefly because I'm certainly a big fan of Chandler has done an exceptional job getting a number of high quality jobs, and I know that's the council's desire and to see that. But as we take a look along the 202, and this is a good graphic to illustrate that within a 2-mile area from Alma School all the way to over to Cooper in the 202, there is a little over almost 1.1 million square feet of office that's entitled. I've bolded number 3 because there is 65,000 square feet that is coming out of the ground at the northeast corner of Alma School in the 202, which I believe is an extension of Banner. So I think it's medical. But yet you still have a large amount. Number 1, which is a stone's throw from where I live, 462,000 square feet of a 4-story office building that was to break ground in 2016. And we can go down it, but I think you can see that there's a number of other better situated locations that certainly aren't as integrated with residential as this one is to have an employment, be it office or industrial type use. You should have received today 2 emails that were sent because wanting to make sure I looked under every nook and every cranny, talked to 2 real estate professionals in the business. And so you would have received an email or a letter from Barry Gable with CBRE, who has 37 years of experience doing office and commercial developments. And I'll let that letter speak for itself, but he said he looked at this site from an office and didn't see the viability of it. Another email letter that you would have received was from Sam Krause, who's with Regent Properties. They have over 32 years of experience and 5 million square feet of office in the Phoenix area. And again, he did not see this as a viable office site. Additionally, one of the developments that I know Andy Barron worked on is the Chandler Airport Center, one that is a pride to the city, and I know that you guys want to continue to do it, and Andy can speak more about that. But as we look at it, there's still 90 acres of land that's down the road that can be developed as employment uses. Quick side story, that star that I placed on the screen there, I can't begin to tell you that the people that have contacted me to put an industrial development on that particular piece. It's tucked back, it's not along the arterial, but the discussions that I've had with them and the discussions that we've had with staff is that is an office piece. Industrial, go away. I'll also tell you that other star that I put up there at Cooper in the 202. Again, I can't begin to tell you the number of people that contacted myself and Mr. Bull about that piece saying, hey, we want multifamily on that piece. And every time anyone brings that up to us, we say, no way in Hades are you ever going to get multifamily on that piece. We think it makes sense, but we know the city's priorities. And so we are certainly sensitive to that. Also, you've got on the southeast side of the airport, over 200 acres of available land. And I think it's important businesses like to group together, and I'll get into that in a minute. And certainly the Burge family is one of the major stakeholders down in this area, and they're excited to see that continued development. They are excited about the discussion that Mayor Dunn, former Mayor Dunn, Chairman Dunn, Commissioner, whatever we're going to call him, Boyd, gave in terms of the priority for Cooper Road going through and figuring out a way to make that work. And I know that the Burge family is excited for that. So, planning principles. As we look at it, one of the things that planners will tell you is that you want to transition density and intensity. And that's what we're doing here. The multifamily that we're proposing at the density that is appropriate per all the guiding documents provides that transition as a rental community to the single family residences south and southeast of us. We provide that buffer. And that's what you look as you drive around the city. You look and you see more intense uses transitioning to less intense uses. The other thing that you see a lot of times, and I think I put this up on purpose, you can kind of see the contrasting areas between Cooper and McQueen, is that developments like to run together. There's synergy in having developments close together. And certainly when we're talking employment and office, one of the strong pulls is to have commercial retail nearby so that people are able to walk and support those commercial services. We don't have any of that stuff at McQueen in the 202. Just to kind of sum up, when we look at planning, this was from the PowerPoint presentation that planning staff made to this group on a multifamily briefing in 2020, so just a few months ago. And in particular, they were talking about suburban densities. And again, I can appreciate the planning and economic might see things a little bit differently, but as far as what we look at and we focus, planning is important. And you can see there where this density is appropriate, adjacent to freeways, and along freeways it's appropriate, and it's adjacent to employment. We check both of those boxes with this development. We are certainly along a freeway in a residential area, and we're adjacent to a future employment. One of the takeaways from that briefing was to continue to follow the general plan and recommending densities in appropriate locations. And that last bullet point I think is very appropriate, and it's where I started and it's where I'll end. And that is, the direction is to preserve employment areas. And certainly, you know, it says there that, again, as we've talked with planning, we've worked closely with them. So again, as we look at it, I can go into more details, but at the end of the day, it's a high quality development. It's been vetted, been thoroughly vetted. Happy to have a discussion with you today about design and stuff like that if we need to. But in terms of the land use, we've vetted it, we've looked at it. It's consistent with all the guiding documents. And those are documents that we rely on. You guys rely on them as well. I know there was a lot of discussion a few months ago concerning a multifamily development along Arizona Avenue north of Germain Road. Lots of discussions about the general plan in the area relative to that particular case. Those kind of same principles, let's look at the general plan, let's analyze the area, are applicable to this discussion tonight. No neighborhood opposition. And again, I can't understate that, because I know the sensitivity of apartment complexes in South Chandler, of apartment complexes in the McQueen Road corridor. I don't think you all have been pounded with emails. I know I haven't. And so I think it speaks that this type of a rental development has been accepted by the community as it relates to this area. And so again, with that, I know there were a number of questions, but I'm going to shut up now at this point. I've probably taken a little more than 3 minutes, and that's okay. But at the end, we would request this council's approval in accordance with the unanimous consent planning commission and staff's recommendation for approval. I know there's going to be questions. I'm available to answer them. If I can't answer them, I'll talk with my client. I'll talk with Andy Barron, and we'll certainly do our best to answer the questions.
All right. First of all, Councilmember Ellis.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ray. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I really appreciate the fact that you were very thorough and you took your time and showed us all the points that we needed to know in order for us to make the right decision tonight for your client. My main question to you, as we have spoken so many times about this project, is that I'm not going to ask you the questions that I've already asked Micah or the staff already, because I've done my homework. I understood this project from head to toe. I pass in front of this piece of land every single day, 5-6 times a day. Okay, so I know exactly what you're talking about and where things are. My question tonight, though, is for the fact that density. I want to talk about a little bit about density. You mentioned that you are right on target with density at 12%, which is the lowest amount of density that is allowed on this site. We're looking from 12 to 18. Why wasn't it possible for you and your client to take this to the max, giving us at least a wonderful view when we are driving down the 202 or any other place? I know you have people all around you. You have privacy issues to deal with, but why was it this not go up at least to 16-17%?
Through the mayor, Councilwoman Ellis, great question. And I think as we look at it, one, in terms of the density of this particular type of a product, single family style, 1 and 2 story units, the max density that I've ever seen in this type of product is right around 12. Sometimes, depending on the site, you can get to 13. But this type of a development, which I didn't speak to and I can talk more if I need to, just doesn't achieve that level of density. But I think importantly, as a number of your colleagues around the dais will attest, there has been a heightened sensitivity to apartments, in particular apartment complexes being built in South Chandler. And I've had lots of conversations with your colleagues who said, Brennan, I'm getting lots of emails about no more apartments south of the 202. And certainly there's a traffic concern that plays into that. So as we looked at this site and what to develop, we were sensitive to the existing comments that council had received relative to that. And we knew that if this were to be a higher density development, 2 and 3 stories, 3 and 4 stories, your traditional apartment complex, that likely I'd be having a lot more neighbors in here wanting to talk with me about it, wanting to talk with you about it, which is
Absolutely.
always a fine balance. But I think when we looked at it, this type of development, we wanted to be sensitive to what I've heard for a number of years, what I think you all have heard for a number of years, and we think it's actually the right fit for the location.
I've never told you any contrary to what I'm saying right now. I love the project. I think it's a great project. I think it's really great for Chandler, where you want to put it. It's wonderful and all. I have a little bit of problem with density, but tonight I'm very pleased of all the points that you have really shown us that this is the place for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Orlando.
Sorry. Thank you, Brennan, for protecting our employment corridors. I appreciate that. It's good to hear you're protecting them as well as other people are. I wish the other folks in your position would be doing that as well, but thank you. So let me go back to the 2-story buildings. Are there windows in the back of these 2 stories so it's actually facing over I know, okay, let me backtrack. The residents have a bunch of 2 stories on their site, correct? On the existing residents?
Mayor, Councilman Orlando, yes, that is correct. There are all 2-story homes that line that rear
Okay.
portion.
And then, so my other question was, it's 2 stories that are actually basically back to back. So your product has 2 stories facing their 2 stories, I'm trying to say, correct?
If I can, let me try to do a better job, and I might bounce around in terms of exhibits. I mean, it's, Mr. Bull would probably chastise
Okay,
me for.
I'll tell you what. So let me just do this.
Okay.
How tall are those 2-story buildings? Roughly.
Bear with me 1 minute. Through the mayor, Councilman Orlando, roughly 26, 27 feet. So a typical 2-story height in terms of that. And as I was speaking with them, and I know it's tough to tell on this if they pull that up, but we purposefully have oriented those so that they are to our development. And I could zoom in.
Okay, that's the issue is this, and I get that, it's fine. That's a ratio. If we put in a multi-flex building here, would you be coming in for a mid-rise overlay to be higher than 40-something feet? Or actually rephrase the question, you go as high as 45 feet if you wanted to put a flex building in here, correct?
Through the mayor, Councilman Orlando, in terms of a flex industrial building, yes, that would be, I believe the last one that I worked on from an industrial building that you all would have seen was Ferguson. And that was, I think 52 feet, because a lot of the flex industrial buildings are requiring greater interior clear space for operations and stuff like that. Then you throw all the screening and all of those inevitably kick it over Chandler's 45 feet height requirement, which kicks in the mid-rise.
So it would basically be double the size looking out my backyard.
Through the mayor, Councilman Orlando, that is correct.
Okay, and that may be good or bad because they don't want to see the freeway. But the point is, and probably architecturally, you'd have to structure, you put the cars or the employment complex right next to the homes?
Yeah, through the mayor, Councilman Orlando, there's a variety of ways of which that could be.
Or you put a dock there?
There's a number of ways that you can do it. I could speculate and I could draw and guess, but there is that possibility.
That's my point. That's exactly my point. You would be either putting docks back there, or you would be putting cars back there facing the neighbors, which is more traffic. And it just would be, I guess I'm visualizing how that would flow, traffic would flow through that building. Even if I put the dock and the cars in it, then the buildings are going to be right on top of the neighbors. So either way, I don't see a good scenario here with a building that large being plopped into this area. Plus, the other thing I want to ask you, this traffic study you did as far as the right-hand turns, obviously you would want rigs, or they would potentially want rigs to be coming in there, larger rigs. So your analysis took into fact that larger trucks would have to come off the freeway to make a left-hand turn into that?
Through the mayor, Councilman Orlando, no, that just presumed normal traffic. It did not take into account any potential additional stacking that would be needed for getting the bigger box trucks or the bigger semi trucks to service this site.
Okay. Yeah, I got a couple more questions I'll reserve for later, but I just want to make sure that staff review that traffic flow that you put on that chart as far as the couple of lines that you put in there about potential where they would have to turn and not turn.
Yeah, through the mayor, Councilman Orlando, in terms of the potential impact of the office development, that was not something that was not provided, because normally in this scenario, what staff reviews and staff analyzes is this development and the impact that this development will have on the adjacent streets. And I can tell you there was a lengthy discussion with them about traffic, about flows and stuff like that, especially when you consider that we felt that the development would work fine as is. We felt there was a way that it could work without the need for that traffic signal there. Happy to make that accommodation, but one of the things, and hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying this, but staff wanted us to put a traffic signal there because, as I believe Micah mentioned earlier, the activity that he had seen, and Micah, if I'm wrong, I don't know where you went to, please correct me. Usually he sits over there. That's why
Yeah,
I
it's
looked over
true.
there
Yeah.
first. Is that I believe the activity that he had been seeing is along Armstrong Way and Hamilton alignment, which is on the other side of your municipal utilities district, as you guys are one of the major landowners in that area.
Yeah, I have my questions asked. And again, I'm assuming staff would probably agree with those traffic analysis that you put together. So again, I'll take your word for that one. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, moving on. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to get back to those backyards, and there was another thing that I wanted to ask. In terms of rents is concerned, in terms of rents, you're talking about, as a council member, well, we make $33,000 a year. And, that's important. That's important because so many people want to move to Chandler, but we have this workforce housing that we really need to think about as well. But getting to the development, I wanted to kind of know, how much does a person have to make to live in this particular project? And then also, I do agree with Vice Mayor Stewart. Chandler has often prided itself on parks and making sure that we have parks in the community where children can play. This is a gated community. I don't think if I was living in a gated community, I would want my child to leave the gated community because I feel that there would be a safety net there. But the plan does not. The plan, to Vice Mayor's point, I don't see that call for parks, but maybe you can discuss the theory and maybe that's something with the backyard and things. So if you can talk to us about that, that would be helpful for me.
Be happy to. Mayor, Councilman Harris. Let me talk about the children first, if I can, to phrase it that way. So again, this development, and we've worked closely with staff, and I've had the opportunity to work on this type of a product throughout the valley. We were the first ones to do this. We did it in Chandler, over at Alma School, and Pecos. And there's a number of other developments that we've worked on. And I think industry-wide, when you look at this single-family rental homes, it is a lifestyle choice, number one. People that want to live here could live elsewhere, but a large number of them choose to live in this type of development. it really appeals to a large number of single women, surprisingly, because they have security of four walls of freedom. They do have a private rear yard. And there is a significant number, I would dare say, probably on average about 50% or more of this type of a community would have single women in it, because there is some privacy, there is some security. Again, they don't worry about people around them. And so as we look at this development and who it appeals to, there's kind of both ends of the spectrum. It appeals to those people that are baby boomers, empty nesters, pre-seniors, seniors, people that want to downsize and want a true lock it and leave it lifestyle. This is going to be managed potentially by Greystar, who is one of the preeminent property management companies across the country, one of the largest. In this type of a development, maintenance is all included. So the rear yards are maintained by the property management company. If a light bulb goes out in the unit, you call the property management company and they take care of it. So it's kind of an all-inclusive type thing. And because that, it leads to, again, as I was mentioning, on one end, the boomers and those. On the other end, what we see are a lot of young professionals, people that have done the apartment living, that maybe don't have the money saved up for a down payment on a home. Or people that are new to the area and want to see what it's like before they really go and purchase a home. And so all that leads up to what they're seeing on average in this particular product is 2 children for every 10 residences. And that data has consistently borne out through as you look at this type of a development. So purposefully, there's not a tot lots that aren't, you won't see a proliferation of tot lots through these types of communities. But that said, I will tell you that there are a number of things that we're doing from an amenity standpoint. This is the clubhouse. This is when you drive in and you can't see it, the entrance is down over here. But as you drive in, obviously this is the building that you're looking at, and this is what you're going into. But what you can see there on the right-hand side is kind of a keynote of the amenities that we've got in there. And you can see there's a lot going on.
Brennan, we're not, okay, thank you. That just showed up on our piece now. Yeah.
I do not bear responsibility for that one. You saw this one? Okay. This one, we do have pool and spas and stuff like that. The other thing that we've got on the other side of the court, and you can start to see it, is a centralized open space where there is turf and areas for people to gather. But we also have, again, in this other amenity areas, pickleball courts and ramadas and stuff like that as we kind of see it, and really kind of unique setting. And Andy Barron can speak more to that. But again, it doesn't bear out that there are a number of large children that are in it. Additionally, we've got Tumbleweed Park that's right around our side. But all that said, if we need to have a discussion and you would like us to consider looking at potential tot lot or some type of activity like that, we're more than happy to consider something like that in this type of a development. I think I've touched on all that in the backyards and stuff like that. The backyards, I believe, are a minimum of 8 feet deep. They are landscaped, but again, there's lots of amenities that people want for this type. In terms of the rent, this really is kind of a unique development in that it appeals to a wide variety of individuals. In terms of the rents, they range, again, with every legal disclaimer that the city attorney will allow me to make when I start talking about rents and stuff like that. Our rent range is really across the board. So it appeals, there are opportunities for those people that may make $30,000 a year as a council person to live in this development. And those rents, and I've vetted it with our client, and we've talked about to the property management company. But on the low end, our rents are $1,300. On the high end, our rents are right around $2,500. And so we run the gamut. Obviously, the larger bedrooms provide greater rental rate and stuff like that. And as we've looked at in that rental range in terms of an annual income of what people would need to make is somewhere between $32,000 on the low end, all the way up to $100,000 on the high end in terms of minimums to be able to qualify for this type of development. So we believe that there are, I'll call workforce opportunities, and we believe there's also opportunities for people that, again, who could otherwise afford a single family home, but for whatever reason don't want to live in it any longer.
I'm going to go first to council members who haven't spoken yet. So I think Councilmember Harris is kind of waiting, but I'm going to, okay. I thought you've been trying to get my attention or something. So, all right, good. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brennan. Great presentation. And so just to be clear, there's been a lot going on in Chandler. Everything's changed over the past 5 years as it relates to what kind of community Chandler has become and is becoming. And it's from councils well before us and great families like the Berg family that invested in our community, and we're appreciative of that. Your presentations are always extremely thorough, and I'm grateful for how much detail you put into that. I'm comfortable with the project and the being residential. I'm comfortable with what you're putting in there. I'm also very interested in the quality of the project, and I've evolved a little bit in my thoughts about this particular project from when we first started talking. I've met with the family. You and I have talked a million times. I've talked with planning staff because this isn't such an important piece of our community right as you get off the highway. So a couple of things that I want to ask for, and I may make a motion to table this to the March 25th meeting. But I don't know where we're at in this presentation piece. But when speaking with folks, being out of land, doing all the things we're talking about, we have to be very careful of what we put in. And so when I'm concerned about the park, right? I'm concerned about the parking right up against the wall that Councilmember Orlando brought up, and people slamming their car doors when they get home from our wonderful downtown Chandler at 1:30 in the morning and waking up the neighbors. I'm concerned about some other things that as it relates. You talked about 2 kids per every 10 units. That's 32 kids for this particular neighborhood with nowhere to play. I just noticed the pool is the width of a pool, or the width of 3 cars for what could be up to 350 people. So there's some work I think that needs to be done here. I'm not familiar with what the in and out would be for that particular. I would rather wait till we get a development across the street before we start worrying about stoplights. This may let you off the hook. I'd like to see that as a right turn only until we get more traffic in that area so that people can actively get to the highway and get to work in Phoenix and other places like that. So I think there's some steps that I'd like to put in, but I don't have time. And I know there's some people here that have some very important things that I'd like to say to the council, but I'd like to make a motion to table this discussion to get some of these stipulations put in, to work with staff and to move forward. So if county attorney or city attorney can help me say that correctly, and if anybody wants to make a second, I'd like to do that.
If I may, Mayor, Vice Mayor, I think you said it perfectly. You moved to table this to March 25th.
Yes.
All right. Is there a second? All right. So there's a motion and a second to table this to the 25th. Council, any conversation on this? I'm just going to start on this. I'm going to vote no on the extension because I do think you have crossed the T's and I think you've dotted the I's in my mind. And I came here quite open tonight. So, Councilmember Lopez.
Go ahead.
Well, we got a second anyway, so we have to.
We had a
follow through.
second.
So I would say, yeah, I'm going to vote no against that. I believe that you addressed a lot of the concerns that even I had mentioned when we talk about traffic. I'm a big one too of employment is very sacrosanct in Chandler, but we do have to take these case by case. And putting office in there is really, to me, a no-go. And industrial is a way, no way in hell it's going to be going there because of getting the residents there. So I think for the development the way it is, the design that you have, again, I don't know if it's the pictures themselves, but it seems a little gray scaling, and I don't know if that's typically, I'm not really into the latest designs, but it seems maybe a little more color somewhere. But anyway, but other than that, I think it does meet the expectations that I would have a development for rental right on the freeway, near industrial, and by other residential. So I think it crosses everything for me. So I'll be voting no on that.
Mayor,
Council, any other thoughts before we vote?
I have a thought.
I'm sorry, me? So, Mayor, so I guess I want to just dive in here. I heard tonight a top park. I heard tonight potentially electrical vehicle plug-in. And I also heard maybe more color diversity on the designs. And again, I'm just throwing what I'm hearing from the council. Is that something you're looking to do here in as far as extending this? If those are some of the items, we could put that a stip tonight, right now, and we would cover that and still move forward with this project. And then staff would come back with the final plat with all this activity. If that's something you're looking at, or is there other stuff you're looking at, council member? I guess that's what I'm trying
No,
to figure out.
Councilmember Orlando, that's well put. And so my concern was there's a lot going on here. We've had these conversations, not with you, Brennan, but with other groups that were, when you're asking for stipulations, it gets a little lost and it gets a little in the weeds. And we're up here, we're on TV and we're trying to figure this all out and using Robert's rules and everything that goes along with that. But I'm happy to work through that right here on the spot if you want to do that, and rescind my my motion to table.
Through the mayor, if it's appropriate for me to speak, I know that there's a motion and a second on the floor. I don't know if it's appropriate.
It was removed. He removed it.
Yeah. So first of all, I think he is rescinding his motion.
Let's
to
keep going.
extend.
Yeah.
Say, give me some guidance just to make sure here, city attorney.
Mayor, as long as the vice mayor is rescinding his motion and Councilmember Ellis is rescinding her second, we can proceed accordingly.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
so Mayor, if appropriate, I'm sorry, Mayor.
So did you?
Okay.
Okay, trying to see who's got
Mayor,
this.
I just
'cause he
wanted-
started this process, but
I just wanted to ask Mr. Ray, with your folks here, are you interested, if we put these stipulations there tonight, to take that back and work with staff and be able to make this happen? The color, some more color diversity, which I agree with, Councilmember, I was almost said Vice Mayor, see that? Lopez, I agree, electrical vehicle would be something that everyone's talking about right now. In fact, Councilmember, Stewart has been championing that for a long time, and I think that's visionary. And then a tot lot, which Councilmember, boy, I'm getting tough with it. I'm really.
I get to look at all
Harris,
your names.
yeah,
so I
you're
can
lucky,
keep them
Harris.
straight.
Those are the three key things I heard tonight. Is your client okay with those? If we make a motion, stipulate those?
Mayor, Councilman Orlando, council, if you'll give me 1 second to, I think I know the answer, but let me just confirm.
and let me ask a clarifier too, because there's a significant cost if the question is to put an electric vehicle charger in every one of these. Certainly cheaper than if it would happen later, but is the request as asked, or is the request just automatic? What is that part of the step? I understand the tot lot. I understand.
No,
This is nebulous to me because there is then a price cost that you would be putting on each individual.
No, I heard that tonight. I'm asking the applicant if they're interested in doing that. If they come back and say, yes, we could do that, then we move forward with improving this with the steps. If they say, gee, I could do the tot lot, the other thing, then that's fine. I'm not here to negotiate. This is what I heard as being.
Yeah.
Can you clarify what the stip is though on the electric vehicle?
Yeah, so again, let me have the floor here and I'll point accordingly. My question is, let me go back to you, Vice Mayor, is your request that every house have this or requests? Because what are we then, are you talking a couple electric spots on the free spaces? Or, I mean, that's a big ask. So what are you asking with that step, sir?
Well, Mayor, thank you for the clarification question. So we jumped from a motion to rescinding it so let's start over from the top if we can. What I'm requesting is, one, we need to move the parking off the back of those neighbors' houses. I think this is a quality project. Like I've said, I want to move forward with it. I just don't think it's built exactly congruent with what's going on in that particular neighborhood. I would like to see some electric vehicle outlets for that neighborhood as well. What did we do? 4 on the one on Chandler, and that was 400 units, at least a minimum of 2. We could work that in. I mean, maybe 4. They'll get used. I am concerned about the number of parking spots for this many units, but we've been cutting our requirements for parking for quite some time because we expect that Uber and driverless cars will start taking over maybe in 10 to 20 years. So the other question that I had was, and I'm getting lost here because I had a lot of them. The light. So let's forget about the light for now because if my memory serves correctly, staff is supportive of the light because of the industrial center there. Yeah, on the other side. What do you? Okay,
If I,
so
if, I- if,
that's the steps now.
if I may, thank you, Mayor, if I can appropriately respond and then we
Please.
can start talking about some other ones. With respect to tot lot, happy to agree to a stipulation to a tot lot.
Okay.
With respect, and I thought I understood where you were going on the charging stations because of our previous discussion. Happy to provide an appropriate amount, minimum of 2 or whatever it is, charging stations for electric vehicles in our development. The one clarifying question that I have back is when we talk about parking against the neighborhoods, and if they can make the magic screen work, there is no parking that is immediately adjacent to those neighbors. Unless I'm mistaken, no parking, but our drive aisle is 26 feet. I have a 25-foot drive aisle. So what I've got is I go from south to north, and hopefully you can see on this one is I've got a 10-foot landscape setback that's going to have a single row of trees along there. This is our landscape plan. So I've got 10-foot landscape setback, row of trees, 25-foot drive aisle, and then I get to the parking spaces. And those all front and are interior to our development. There's no parking that is adjacent to the Horizon development. In addition to those, I do have some carriage units that are further west, and I think Councilman Orlando asked what the X's were. Those are parking spaces. Those buildings D, F, and E that you see on that, those are carriage units along the south. In fact, if it's helpful, I think I figured out how to do this. Those
But those are cars that are lined up against the back of those homes. Right.
Against our
20,
homes.
20 feet?
They're 35 feet, actually. And those are garages. Those are closed down garages.
And the ones with the X's are
Just
not.
covered parking spaces. I think there's roughly 20 spots that are there. And I'm trying to understand so we can figure out what a potential stipulation would be in that regard.
It's just a concern from a noise perspective. Just creating harmony between neighborhoods is what the role of municipality is. Neighborhoods, whatever, streets, all those kind of things. So those are some challenges that I think you're going to be faced with. You're officially done.
Yeah,
they basically just shut you down.
No, that specific issue was discussed at our neighborhood meeting.
Okay.
Because the residents were concerned about privacy. And as we explained to them what I've explained here tonight, we've got good separation, we've got good distance, that at least those residents, and I think there were a couple that were along that north property line that specifically attended our neighborhood meeting and specifically asked those questions, they were comfortable with it. Not to say that some neighbor might have a problem with it in the future, but at least initially as we were presenting this, and we sent notices out to people, everyone within, I think, 300 feet of the site, 600 feet of the site. And so it goes out.
Derek, is every one of those homes occupied? I know it's a brand new neighborhood.
Yeah, through the mayor, vice mayor. I don't know if they're all occupied. I know they've been under construction for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe they are all occupied. They are. Okay. Andy's worked on that development.
So, Council, where are we at with this parking?
Oh, Mayor, may I say something?
Councilmember Orlando.
I was going to give a motion, but if there's more dialogue.
I wanted to say something, Mayor Harris.
I'm not sure we're ready for a motion at this point, but so my question is, where are we at with our council? Are you fine? He's done the neighborhood work with us. The neighbors seem fine with us. Are you good with the parking?
I want.
Okay.
Well, we can't.
Did you have a comment on this, Councilmember Harris?
Yeah, yes, I did. Thank you. These masks and everything. Well, I wanted to say that I like the project, Mayor. I do support what you shared. I think that outside of the concerns of Vice Mayor, I think we should just move forward with the project at hand. If there's additional details as Matt been laying out, can we work that? Is there a way that we can work that offline versus doing it right now?
We could make a step.
City Attorney.
Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Harris, these need to be added to the ordinance as a stipulation, so that we have that full force to require the developer to follow through.
Mayor,
I do
would like
realize
to-
this is late, but this is kind of, and if, you know, again, until council has reached a place, or maybe it is appropriate to.
Mayor,
Let me do this. Let me start on this end and this, and then I'm going to call the question at that point. I do want to give everyone a chance. So, Councilmember Harris.
Mayor, I would like to support the project as is with the stipulations that Vice Mayor feel comfortable to add.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good moving forward with a couple of steps with the electrical vehicle tot lot and
With the steps that have been currently
discussed. Yeah,
discussed.
the parking one, I think, is not needed.
Okay.
So I think just with the tot lot and EV.
And might I get one more clarification question, at least for me, is you had questioned the light. And again, to me, this is a staff question that because I don't think the developer necessarily wanted to put a light on there. So could I have a staff person address the light on Armstrong and McQueen, please? Because I think that came from us, is my understanding.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and yes, Mayor, that did come from, excuse me, that did come through staff recommendation, not necessarily just for this site, but also for, again, more regionally. We're looking for connections across the street on the west side of McQueen. And in order to get circulation to that area, we're looking how to get traffic in and out. And the answer really is, or the options that we came up with is Armstrong and Hamilton. So those are kind of the two collectors that we're looking to try to build up on that west side to get circulation in the area south of 202, but north of Germain.
And is it typical then for the first developer or who would be on there on this side to ask for the light then, and then there might be some, or how does that happen traditionally with us? Because you're saying a future need, but obviously there's a cost factor of when you're going to do it now as opposed to later.
Sure. I guess two things on that. One, usually every corner pays 25% is typically how we address the signal. So this development would be paying 50% basically for the east side of this. Again, it's typically how we do it. And as far as when it occurs, and because of its location to the freeway, and because we know a lot of people are going to either go east and west on the freeway, we do want to we wouldn't allow this to go in at this location as a full movement without signalization in order to allow those movements to occur safely and to allow people that are wanting to go east and west on the freeway to have, make those safe movements out of this development. So we would want it to go in with this specific, or whoever went first
Okay.
at this location.
Thank you. Let me keep going this way. Councilmember Rowe.
All right. I assured Mr. Ray that I wasn't going to say much tonight. So it's okay to have this discussion. This piece of land is complex because it's been cornered. And on some level, that's because of planning. And if Senate was the main out and there was a traffic light there, that would be a lot more appealing. That would be a much better way. Now, I know how it is now, but, and you know, and I've said to you that nobody really anticipated all the high-density housing that we are getting. And that is what the future of Chandler is, high-density housing. So despite that, it's a real disappointment. If you want to talk to me about a right out onto McQueen, and I heard what you said, Mayor, but if you want to talk to me about a right out, I know we just spent millions at Alma School in the 202 trying to deal with accidents and very upset citizens about traffic and what was going on right there. So this to me looks more of the same. So I assume that in the future, planning could make changes at this intersection, Armstrong, but I assume that the city will probably end up paying for that too. So it's still a concern for me as far as the Armstrong intersection. And so and some of this other stuff sounds fine.
Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Ray. At this point, I think we are pretty much satisfied that you have really worked it well and give us some good substance on what to make our decision with. And I will stay at that point right now, and I'm ready to vote.
And Councilmember Orlando.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. Thank
I
you.
think it would be appropriate.
Thank you. I move to introduce ordinance number 4958, preliminary development plan and preliminary plat, PLH 19-0063/PLT 19-0055, Alexar at McQueen, with the following stipulations that we agreed to with the developer. We will add work with staff to add electrical vehicle outlets, 2 or 4, depends what you guys decide to do. But no less than 2 and no more than 4. I think that gives you a good range. You will provide a top park, and then you will provide a better paint color diversity for that project.
I second that.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. I think you're going to be happy if your speakers don't speak. I think you guys will be quite content. So
It'll be okay.
all right, council, please vote.
Motion carries by majority with Councilmember Rowe voting or dissenting.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Next on our agenda is action item number 32. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt Dunbar, our budget manager, is going to come forward to kick off the fee discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am grateful I'm not trying to build a building for a long discussion. Luckily, I'm talking about fees, which is another popular topic. Typically when I start things out, I like to add a little levity to it. And I thought, there's not a very good way to talk about, fees and have a good joke involved. So I did think about, though, when I first started in municipal government, I started as a tax auditor. Which is probably the least liked government employee of all. And in fact, my own grandma sent me a quote as a new tax auditor from Mark Twain that said, "Do you know the difference between a tax man and a taxidermist? The taxidermist will at least leave the skin." So, when you're talking taxes and talking fees, it's not everyone's favorite topics to go through. But luckily tonight, I just have to kind of set us up, and then some of the directors and assistant chiefs will walk us through some of the proposed fees. So each year throughout the budget process, we do a review of the specific fees that the city of Chandler charges. We typically do sometimes a mid-year fee if fees are required to be changed throughout the year, and then we look at changes to be effective for the new fiscal year. So we've done that as well this year, and some of the departments have fees that will be effective March 1st of 2021, and some have fees that will be effective July 1st of 2021 for next fiscal year. An overview of some of the fee characteristics. So fees are assessed for use of facilities or services benefiting specific groups. Typically, one of the major differences between fees and taxes are assessed for facilities and things that are used by the general public that don't have a direct benefit. There's no way to directly charge them for the use of specific items. For example, streets and roads. It would be very difficult to have every street and road throughout the city of Chandler with a toll booth to collect fees for those specifically using that. So taxes are the better revenue source for those types of things. Fees are for those things like specific facility use or uses benefiting specific groups. So when there's something that only benefits a specific group of individuals, typically there's a fee that's charged. And most of the fees try to recover as much of the cost as possible. So a cost recovery is looked at. However, sometimes the market demands lower rates than actual cost recovery. So for example, a a pagoda at the park that you wanted to rent for a birthday party. If you looked at the actual capital cost to add the trees and the plants and the actual facility and the maintenance, if you added all that in to charge that 1 hour rate, your rate would be very, very high. So we look at what the actual market conditions can be for those fees, and we have to adjust those annually. So that's what this process is going through. Additionally, we have to have authority to charge fees, and it must exist in the city code. And so we do have those code adjustments tonight for your review. Our process as we go throughout this process, we kicked off in November where we talked with all of the departments to update and discuss their fees with the city manager's office. And I'd identify those fees that truly needed to be changed. Those proposed fees were analyzed and summarized in December. And then a list of those fees and changes were posted online on December 23rd for public review. We have a 60-day notice process that we must follow, and those have been posted for more than 60 days. Additionally, we post notices in Arizona Republic, as well as social media postings and additional information on our website. We do have 6 departments that are proposing fee updates tonight: the City Manager's Office, Airport Division, the Fire Department, Development Services Planning Division, Cultural Development Museum Division, Community Services, Recreation and Aquatics Divisions, and the Neighborhood Resources Code Enforcement Divisions. And with that, we'll be kicking off our presentations tonight. City Manager, Airport Division, call up Ryan Reeves from the Airport Business Coordinator to go over their fees and charges.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Mayor, Council, good evening. Again, my name is Ryan Reeves. I'm the Airport Business Coordinator, and I'm here to discuss a few of our proposed fee amendments this evening. We will begin simply by stating that in our annual staff audit, we chose to focus on 5 key points for the airport's fees, and those would be corrections within the fee schedule, of course, cost recovery, figures quite large, consistency between our forms, our practices, and the fee schedule, our competitiveness in both the local region as well as the state airport networks region, and figuring very largely, particularly for the first fee schedule amendment, is market, future market growth. And with that, I will begin addressing item 1, which is changes to the fuel fee calculation. As many of you know, the city of Chandler sells avgas, 100 low lead, at a self-serve island located in a common ramp area on the airport. Avgas is a highly volatile market. Pricing in avgas is extraordinarily volatile. Supply and demand ebbs and flows in uncommon ways to the normal auto gas fuel market, or even the jet fuel market, if you will. The current pricing formula is one that staff considers to be heavily encumbered. In other words, each gallon is carrying, we believe, excess fiscal weight, essentially. This kind of encumbered pricing structure was first put into place in fiscal year 04. Since that date, we have lost 86% of our flow at the self-serve island. This is largely because the current pricing structure focuses on placing every possible cost on top of fuel that it could carry, down to staff time, down to subscriptions to public information sites, etc. This is not industry standard. The industry standard is to utilize a cost plus system. What staff has done is monitored fuel pricing over a lengthy period of time and determined that the ideal cost plus formula for Chandler would be 80 cents. And that is to say we would never lower the cost more than our wholesale cost of the fuel with an increase of 80 cents per gallon. The reason for 80 cents is quite simple. Across the past several calendar years, the market can be so volatile in avgas, we can see 80 cent per gallon market swings. It has been known to swing that drastically in a week's time. With such a change, we'll have obviously an increase in revenues. We believe we can currently get from approximately 30,000 gallons a year as we sit now with the current pricing formula to, in 5 years, our hopes is to increase that to 100,000 gallons, a mark we used to have with regularity. This is a force multiplier for not just the city of Chandler. This is a force multiplier for our business partners on the airport. This drives activity at our airport and to our airport. More activity drives more maintenance requirements, more avionics requirements, more folks eating at the airport cafe. So it is a force multiplier.
Mayor? Yeah, and Mr. Reeves, I appreciate you explaining that to us, and I get that. But how does this compare to the providers on the airport with their fuel? Are we competitive? Are we putting them? Are they okay with this new formula?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, excellent question, sir. We have been in close communique with Chandler Air Service specifically, as they also provide self-serve avgas as well as full service avgas from their truck. They are aware of our intentions tonight. They've expressed no concerns to me directly, and I have been in conversation with them multiple occasions.
And do we still get a percentage of their, there was one time we got a percentage of their fees. That's what they said drove it up higher, therefore ours should be lower. But with this cost plus, we still getting a percentage of their fees?
Councilmember Orlando, that is correct, sir. We will still get a fuel flowage fee per gallon for every gallon sold on the airport, and that is factored into our formula as well.
Okay, so their pricing will be comparative to ours, and then we're still getting a slight fee from their service, right?
Councilmember Orlando, that is correct, sir. Right now, we are not competitive. What the formula currently has us do is we adjust to the cost per gallon, and we wait for the market to correct to us rather than having the ability to go to the market. So
I got it. Thank you.
Very
Thank you,
welcome,
Mayor.
sir.
Proceed.
The next fee that we want to look at is staff time outside of normal operations. Currently, we have a city policy that if we were to call a staff member to respond operationally to a demand at the airport after hours outside of standard staff time, that we pay that staff member 2 hours minimum. However, our fee schedule allows us only to charge for the time spent on site. Many of our call outs, if you will, after hours or very, very, very late at night, for example, a blown tire on a runway at 1 o'clock in the morning, we are beholden and obligated to keep that airport at 100% operational capacity at all times. We would charge the member of the flying public that needed that service. If we were only there for a half hour, we would charge that crew a half hour's time while paying our staff a minimum of 2 hours. This, we suggest, being a 2-hour minimum being placed in the fee schedule simply for cost recovery.
And Ryan, all of these really just bring us close to market, right? I mean, right now we are undercharging, so we're not looking at further, but this really, all the things you're presenting to us as I look through this, they just bring us into the market and a comparison with our neighbors. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, that is absolutely correct. A lot of what we're going to talk about from this point forward is fine tuning, if you will. And even with these increases in cost, and we also suggested bringing the per hour rate up during both normal hours and during call out hours, this doesn't make us remotely the most expensive in the area. We are still extremely competitive, but it gets us very, very close, to a full cost recovery.
Okay. Proceed.
Thank you, sir. The next item is hangar lock and access devices. At the airport, we have 116 hangars that are city-owned and operated. We have gone through a procedure in the past year to standardize the locking system on all of these hangars, as well as we've upgraded and standardized our electronic gate access to the entire airfield. We have a gate access or an access device fee for $35 for a replacement fee, which covers very adequately the electronic gate cards. If you will, this is one here as an example. However, should we have to replace a lock because of damage, what have you, Those locks can run anywhere between $75 and $100. So we would like to place language in the fee schedule stating that $35 or full replacement cost, whatever is higher. And the next is hanger deposit retention for the cleaning fee. This was brought up by staff for a very simple reason. There is a rapidly changing demographic in aviation. We are known for having a rather senior pilot population that is changing, I am happy to say. We have many young people getting into the industry, are tenacious, and hangars are changing hands. Things are shifting. So as we do this, speaking as a pilot, as an aircraft owner, we tend to accumulate a lot of things over the years. In the past, we have taken the hangar deposit and we've applied it to their first month's rent. We would like it to be very expressly spelled out in the fee schedule that we retain that for a cleaning fee should the hangar not be left in serviceable condition. Staff sometimes have to spend appreciable time cleaning hangars prior to our being able to release them. And last but certainly not least, and perhaps this is a bit in the weeds, so bear with me, lease language changes. This is a rather sweeping suggestion, but we think it's forward-looking. A lot of this will be pioneering, and in our opinion, pretty visionary, and will work out well for the airport. We're wanting to amend some lease language. This is focused on our competitiveness and our future growth. One of the things that we want to focus on is accommodating current and future modern fleet changes. So for example, right now we have a gradation of charges based on aircraft weight, which is industry standard. However, that industry weight is not specified in the fee schedule as the aircraft's maximum takeoff weight, which is extraordinarily important to those fee gradations. The current fee schedule we have is perfectly suitable for the aviation fleet nationwide and locally 15 to 20 years ago. However, we have come a very, very long way. And aircraft that require more room, aircraft that create more prop wash and jet blast are remarkably lighter now. And we are adjusting the language to suit in our fee gradations. That is solely to create a more fair and equitable fee gradation for all folks that use the airport. We also would like to establish daily and monthly rates for hangar uses. This, we believe, will come in handy as leases expire, long-term leases expire on the airfield, and we have to go out for an RFP publicly. That hangar runs the risk then of sitting idle for some time. If we have T hangars that with our wait list, we're waiting for someone to occupy, we may have in the interim folks that come in that need a hangar for an evening, for a week. This new language would allow those revenue streams to remain open to the city, as well as helping the flying public and driving more business to our airport. That fee in and of itself is quite unique in the state, but something I can assure you multiple other airports are also considering as we speak. And the last but not least, one of the lease language changes we would like to add in is office space rates. As we go forward, we are going to get increasing, and we're already seeing it, increasing interest in businesses coming in to do their startups at Chandler Airport, aviation-based aircraft, maintenance, charter outfits. They will all need office space. As facilities become available in future, it would be, we believe, forward-looking to have these rates set up and ready so that we can turn and execute those airport business permits quickly and efficiently. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Council, any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I do want to point out, Mayor and Council, at the bottom of each of these slides is the summary that was attached to this action item. Page 7 of the summary is where you'll find additional summary details of these changes. And then pages 14 and 15 of the citywide fee schedule, which is also attached, is where you can get the detail, the red line, all of the specifics in each slide that we go through will have that information. So next we're going to be talking about fire, and I'd like to call up Assistant Chief Scott Chapman. He's going to walk through the fire portion for you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Scott Chapman. I'm one of the Assistant Chiefs, and my primary responsibilities are training and our EMS divisions. So this evening, the fire department's presenting a new fee in the amount of $6,000 as it relates to our paramedic training program. So every other year, the department conducts a paramedic training program for our employees to certify them as emergency paramedics. And occasionally, through that process, we get other municipal fire departments in the region reach out to us with the request to put some of their employees into those programs. So what this fee would do is allow us to offset that cost and recoup the cost of administering the program for those individuals. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Lopez.
Just how often do you see some of those, again, outside region or even partners coming in?
Through the mayor, Councilman Lopez. So that's part of the problem, is that inside the region and the automatic aid agreement is a limited amount of programs that actually stand up. So a lot of times the other municipal departments, when they see the opportunity, will actually reach out to us and say, hey, you know, do you actually have space and capacity to put our people in there? So I would say it's pretty frequent, but you know, like I said, we're only every other year on the actual program. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Okay, our next group will be the Development Services, and Derek Horn's going to present that for us.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last year, the City Council adopted a historic preservation ordinance. Two of the four preservation district options are a rezoning process. The current rezoning fee is $785 plus $40 per acre, which could be okay for developers, but it could also be a burden on neighborhoods and small businesses seeking designation. Our goal is to help incent and encourage the creation of preservation districts with a flat fee. So we're proposing $100 to create a historic preservation district, and then $50 for each landowner, homeowner, or property owner to annex into an established historic preservation district. So that's my presentation. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration. Any questions?
All right. All right. Thank you. Seeing no comments? I think no comments are perhaps a statement of the hour as well, so thank you.
All right, Mayor and Council, next is Cultural Development, and Kim Moyer is going to present for the Museum Division.
Thank you, Matt. Mayor, Council, this last fiscal year, the Chandler Museum Foundation was formed with City Council approving its first members for the foundation, including 4 members from the Chandler Historical Society. The foundation has requested that the earned revenue from the facility rental fees and the gift shop be retained by the Museum Foundation, using these funds to ensure its mission to raise money for the Chandler Museum. These funds will be used to market the museum, additional fundraising opportunities, and working with the museum team to bring in more robust exhibits. So the proposal before you is to eliminate the fees that you see before you, and to address Vice Mayor Stewart's concern on future fee increases. We will be working with the foundation to modify the museum management procedures MOU to include to not increase the rental fees more than 5% every 2 years.
Council? Did you have a comment?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Orlando.
Thank you, sir. How much activity have we seen on renting the museum?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, because of COVID, we've seen very few.
Right.
So by the time when the fees were presented till COVID, we had less than a handful, and they were all a monthly nonprofit. So we've had very few, but that doesn't mean that we won't continue to try to increase the rental fees in the future.
Okay, I just wanted, I mean, it's really minuscule as far as what you're saying, as far as an income, right? Okay, that's enough. All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, and just one for me. So we will, you'd mentioned a 5% increase every other, and is there any, so all the, basically the money will be dispersed and there's still city oversight of that, even with the museum, the board following that?
Mayor, correct. We do have oversight on the foundation. All the fees will directly go back into the museum. And so the 5% is could be a 5% increase every 2 years. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will.
Okay, and it's not that I have any mistrust, distrust of the foundation, but I believe that eyes watching dollars are always good. So thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, Kim, I was going to say this earlier, but thank you. And thank you to the foundation, the folks that volunteer on that. It's amazing the work they do. And trust me, the whole 5% thing was not about who we have here today or anybody sitting on this board, but we don't know who will be there 20 years from now. So making sure that's in the MOU so that the people the residents that paid their taxes for the museum long ago and that are retired or whatever, fixed income, can still go enjoy the museum. So thank you.
All right, no other questions? Thank you, Kim. Matt.
All right, next we have Community Services, Recreation and Aquatics Divisions, and Andy Bass, the Community Services Director, will present their fees.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For this year, we have 3 areas that we would ask for your consideration in changing fees. The first one is to add what we're calling a mini field preparation fee that we would use for our softball and baseball fields. These would be primarily used by tournament users. These are not mandatory fees. These would be something that would be requested. This service has been requested by our current users, so that is why we included it. The second category of fees is changes to our lifeguard fees for our swim team rentals as well as our general pool rentals. We're proposing that they move from $15 to $20 an hour, and this is simply to recoup our cost of staffing those events. And then the final section that we have is basically kind of a reorder of how we're doing our punch passes at our aquatic centers. It's important to note we're not proposing any change to our general entry fee. This is simply for our punch pass. Currently, we have 5, 20, and 30 punch passes that we offer, and we're proposing moving those from 15 and to 30 punches only. The reason we would like to eliminate the 5 punch is what we're seeing is, the whole goal of a punch pass is for people to come multiple times and to get a discount for coming multiple times. And we're seeing people buy the 5 punch and then using it immediately to get their family through and not using it for future visits. So that is what we're proposing. It is important to note that actually the 30 punch adult pass is actually going down from $45 down to $33.75. So there's actually a decrease in fees for that one.
All right, Council?
Mayor. Yeah, sorry.
Councilmember Orlando.
Okay, so we still have the $1.75 for kids to go swimming, right?
Yes.
All right, we
No
haven't
change.
changed that in 20 years and it's good. Press on.
No change.
Anybody else? So, I do have a punch pass that's easily 25 years old, and so it just gets lost. I do swim more than that, by the way. So.
Time to come in. We would love to see you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mayor and Council, next up we have Neighborhood Resources, Code Enforcement Division, and Leah Powell, Neighborhood Resources Director, will present their fees.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you all recall, in December, we brought forward a code that's really streamlined our code. And along with that, we've looked at streamlining our fees. What we're proposing tonight is actually a decrease in fees. The fees that we've had in place have been inspection fees, and those have been based on the number of inspections and then an additional charge. We are looking at going to a percentage fee for an abatement. Keep in mind, we probably do less than 12 abatements a year. And so this would be, just seem much more reasonable, go to 25% of the contract fee for an abatement versus right now, we probably average about 41%. We are adding a demolition fee because it did not exist, and it's probably been about 5 years since we've had a demolition. It's very rare that we have to use that, but if we do have to do a demolition, we would propose doing the exact same structure with the 25%. And then on the second slide, you see that we are eliminating the specific inspection fees and reinspection fees.
And Lee, I got one question. I do recall that I think an ongoing council initiative for demolition was to be able to demolish some houses that were perhaps potentially drug houses or other things. Has that been used at all? Do you
Mayor
recall what I'm talking, or okay?
Yes, Mayor Harkey, there was a period of time that we were looking at using CDBG funds to do that. And it became a little complicated because the homeowner had to assume a percentage of that. We put a lien on the property. We haven't done that for a number of years. I think the other thing that played into that was during a time where we had more foreclosures. And quite frankly, we did clean up several structures like that. So we really haven't had the demand or necessarily the need to use that type of program. Certainly it's something that we could look at in the future should we ever find ourselves back into the situation with many foreclosures and structures truly becoming dilapidated.
Thank you.
We're looking for safety issues,
Yeah.
certainly.
All right, moving on.
All right. Mayor and Council, that concludes all of the fee recommendations for changes. I do want to point out airport and fire fee changes would be effective as mid-year changes, so in the current fiscal year. However, the rest of them would be effective July 1 in the next fiscal year.
All right. I do have one speaker card for this item. Is John Hijowski? Okay, say again, please. Okay, man, I butchered that. I apologize. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes. The light turns green at yellow. You'll have about 30 seconds left.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, thank you for allowing me to have a moment for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is John Honecki. I live at 23409 South 132nd Place in Chandler. I'm the president of the Arizona Aquatic Club, so one of the swim teams. We're a competitive youth swim team. We operate as a nonprofit organization. We have been recognized here by the City Council in the previous as our partnership with the fire department on your Eye to Eye Supervise campaign as we volunteer the kids to hand out the flyers. I manage the organization as a volunteer, and I only mention that because we run the organization on a very tight budget. I'm actually in support of the lifeguard fee structure. My request is that is delayed by about a 6-month time frame, only because of COVID. Our membership and the youth sports teams like myself are operating at a much smaller capacity than we have in the past. We're currently operating at about 50% or less than 50% of our capacity. We've taken extraordinary measures to keep our members safe and to ensure that the parents and the families feel that it is safe to operate. But we still have many families that are choosing to be on the sidelines and wait until they've deemed it a safer time. So I do support the fee structure. I have a good, strong knowledge of operating swimming pools and the lifeguard fee structure. I completely understand that and support that. I'm just asking for a slight delay in that so that we can get through this period of time and recover the membership, because I'm going to pass that fee on to the memberships. So just that's the only reason I'm asking for that delay. Thank you.
Okay. City manager.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's not working. There we go.
Yeah,
So that'll give us 4
I understand
months.
that. And I guess my specific request is to move that from July 1st to January of 2022.
Part of it, would this include the lifeguards, or what all would this include your specific?
The specific proposal is lifeguard fee. Yes, from
Okay.
$15 to $20. That's
And, and Andy, when's the last time we raised lifeguards, please?
I don't have that exactly. My guess from what I reviewed was 08, 09 is the last time that we had made any changes to that. But specific to FB, I'd have to really look that in.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen any changes just doing my research for this for many, many years.
So it's been at least possibly 12, 13 years since we've had an increase to our lifeguards?
That is what I'm seeing, yeah. Since we brought on Mesquite Grove's pool is the last time that there's been a fee increase. But again, I can double check that.
Okay.
Mayor.
Councilmember.
Well, Andy's still here, so thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Andy, how important is it to, I mean, is the pool this busy during a season where we lose a lot of money if we kept this fee through, just the lifeguard fee alone through January 1st of 2022? I mean, was that something that's going to be detrimental to your budget, or I'm just trying to get a feel for that?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councilmember Orlando. We've been using this fee for many, many years. So if your decision is to move that to January, then we'll just continue for this season as we have been. So, it's kind of how we have been doing it. And if we wait till January, then we can implement it next year.
Okay.
Either way, whatever you decide.
And just to cut to the city attorney, since it's still the same fiscal year, we could actually just make, if we do a stipulation as motion, it's still in the same fiscal year, we could do all the other fee increases at their appropriate dates, March 1st and then July 1st. And then if we want to make a motion, January 1st, just for the lifeguard fees increases.
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, yes, you can do that.
Okay, thank you. We're just making steps all night tonight, aren't we?
So can I ask a question before we consider this step? There might also, Councilmember Stewart has just raised there might be a way that we can help this organization. I every year, I use the pools. We do a party with a faith group, and again, it's going to raise mine a little bit, which I think I'm more than willing. So I think lifeguards are more than just his program. They're used for a lot of other purposes that I certainly don't mind and think it would be appropriate to pass those on. So I don't know if there's a way to carve that out, or potentially, as Councilmember Stewart wondered, provide some CARES dollars that would kind of make you whole for the season, and or something like that. But
So, Mayor, there is actually two fees. There is a fee specific to swim teams, and there is a fee specific to rentals. Both of them are the same price. So we have proposed to move both of them to 20. So if you would like to defer, we can move the rentals up to 20, and then we could keep swim teams at 15, and that would basically do what you're suggesting.
Well, I think what we're asking is would it be possible to use CARES Act dollars like we do with our other non-for-profits, or maybe ask Ascend to support their non-for-profit with CARES Act dollars to cover the cost of this right now? Would that not work?
No, it's a totally different mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not you mean Ascend, but we could
Yeah.
still push CARES Act dollars at least to get them to January.
Possibly. Let me ask city manager, city attorney.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, I don't think that this is going to be a deal breaker from the aquatic standpoint. If you would like to just delay that until January, I don't really see a big issue with that.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Councilmember Harris.
there may not be other organizations that have taken the time to come here. Could we just consider any rate increases that we're seeking to increase? Can we just push it all to January? At least we'll know that the pandemic we'll kind of be clear from it, and we're not adding additional hardship to any organization that could be impacted by any of the increases, and just push it to January, and just say it starts in January. We'll be past the pandemic. We won't have many issues in terms of dollars and people, that's not stresses.
I would struggle with a broad sweeping move like that, because this is something that we look at. If there's specifics like this, it's impacted. But for example, the gas fees at the airport or others, I don't see the corollary, quite honestly. And I'd be willing to support pushing this specific one back 6 months. And if we find other issues that we can find a ways to make whole, I would certainly look at that as well. So would that be satisfactory, sir?
That's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Next. Ooh, he's looking like there's no next.
Mayor and Council, that concludes our presentation. So thank you.
Great. Is there a motion?
Mayor?
Let's give Councilmember Harris a chance to make a motion.
Oh, sure. Just put the stip in there.
That's right.
Goodness. Let me pull this.
I'm sorry.
You
Let's
asked the last.
give you an easy one. I'm sorry.
I'll take it.
You asked the last
I'll take
question.
it. I'll take it, Councilmember Harris.
All right. Councilmember Lopez.
I will
I'm sorry,
move
Councilmember Harris.
No,
I didn't
you're
mean to-
fine.
the
You're fine.
approval of resolution number 5431, amending the citywide fee schedule, stipulating that the lifeguard fee does not change until January of 2022.
Lifeguard for swim teams.
Swim teams, lifeguard for swim teams does not change until January of 2022.
Oh,
Second.
all right, we'll go with you. So, all right, thank you. All right, council, please vote. Yeah,
Motion carries unanimously.
great. Council, we're getting there. Next on our agenda, we have some unscheduled public appearances and people that have been waiting a significant amount of time. I do have some comments to make beforehand. We have a number of speaker cards that are an unscheduled public appearance to address the officer-involved shooting that occurred on January 2nd. This case remains an active investigation, both internally and in the Maricopa County's Attorney's Office. To be transparent and to inform our community, members of the incident, Chandler Police on January 15th released all of the officer's body camera footage from the moment the camera was activated in the patrol car until the shooting occurred. As has been our practice in Chandler for 20 years, this incident will be reviewed by the citizen panel on use of force once the investigation is complete. And council, since this is an unscheduled public appearance, we can listen to the concerns and direct staff to follow up, but cannot engage, ask questions with the speakers in dialogue. So that's kind of the ground rules of because of open meeting law of unscheduled appearances. So I have a number of cards, the same rules that applied what you saw to that one individual. I'm going to ask you to come up, state your name and address. You'll have up to 3 minutes. I would prefer, if you've just got the same thing to say, then just say, I agree with that. But I will give you your time, but I think your presentation will be more powerful if you have something unique to add that you want to say to us rather than say the same thing. So we're good with that? All right, thank you. So I have no particular order. I'm just looking the way that these were, probably the first one and then the rest kind of came in. Phil Martinez. And Phil, as you heard me say, state your name and address, and you'll see the green, yellow, and red light. And I'd rather not cut you off when you're red, so please wrap up your comments during the yellow, sir.
Sure, I'm here representing, I'm on behalf of the Cano family, Renee and Eva there. My name is Phil Martinez, and I live in Tempe, Arizona. I am an activist against police violence, and I'm here in support of the Cano family and the Change Our America Foundation. The Cano family suffered a tragedy, like you stated, on January 2nd, 2021. 17-year-old Anthony Cano was shot twice in the back by an officer who is yet to be named. And this is one of the reasons why the family and friends have gathered here tonight. There are legal recourses that the family must take, and naming the officer is one of them that is important to them. So we're asking you, Mayor and Vice Mayor, to petition the Chief of Police to release the full body cam footage and the name of the officer and the interviews for the law team of the officer so that they can proactively seek legal recourse. Up until now, they have not done that, and indicating the Chief of Police actions indicate that he's in line with what we see in other departments across the nation where they stall specifically to hinder the victim's rights to prosecute, to seek restitution. This is our only recourse to sanction a police officer is through financial restitution. So we're asking you for that tonight. I know you said you can't speak with us, but you can instruct your chief of police to release the body cam and the name so that the lawyer can take appropriate action for the family. You are about transparency, you stated, correct, sir?
I said I cannot engage you, sir.
I asked you to instruct to release the body cam footage.
Do you have anything else to say, sir?
Are you refusing to release the body cam footage and the name of the police officer that this family is entitled to? They have longstanding law enforcement ties to the community. Are you refusing to answer that?
As stated, this is an unscheduled public appearance.
Correct,
Tonight
and
that
you are
I'm-
allowed to give guidance and corrections to staff to make moves. He is your staff. Advise him to release the body cam footage that is policy like other police departments do.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
I'm not done speaking yet.
Mayor,
Okay, you've got 30 more seconds.
So you're holding us to time, but you'll talk to millionaires all day long. But when it comes to a 17-year-old who got shot in the back, we have no recourse to take. Are you leaving us the only action is to protest your city? I'm asking you a question, Mayor. Are you going to instruct your chief of police to release the name of the officer who shot a 17-year-old in the back twice? Then we will launch a campaign against you and any mayor and anybody who doesn't stand up for that. That is
Thank you, Mr.
ridiculous.
Martinez.
Can any of you guys stand up and demand that this family get the name
Thank
of the
you,
officer
Mr.
who shot the
Martinez.
police officer?
Thank
I am
you.
not leaving until this person gets the name so that they can sue legally. That is, you are helping the police victimize this family even more. Are you part of the Blue Lives Matter clan? Are you part of the gang of the police officers that are terrorizing the community of Phoenix? Are you also part of that clan too? Here,
Mr.
Mayor?
Martinez, do I need to exercise the steward to?
Oh, Chief,
move
you'll
on?
move that quick, right, Chief? But you won't move to name the officer that shot a kid in the back. A 17-year-old got shot
Mr.
twice.
Martinez, I'm going to ask you to step down.
A 17-year-old got shot twice, and you're refusing to do anything, Mayor. Mr. Kevin, I hope that you get voted out your next term because you are a coward.
Thank you, sir. Next person, Renee Cano, if you would like to speak. No? Okay. Next, I have Marcus Cano. Would you like to say some words, sir? And again, state your name and address for the record.
Cano from Mesa, Arizona. Mr. Mayor, council members, give me a second here. As I stated, you guys know, January 2nd, my cousin Anthony Cano was chased by a police officer for the reason, which is not given until hours after the fact. They were at the hospital with his mom as to why he was shot in the back for the reason of not having lights on his bike. That's why all these people are out here, is because he was on his bike, riding down the streets, and for whatever reason, this officer wanted to pull him over. So, original statements made by the officers at the hospital night indicated they shot the wrong person, as there was an incident earlier in the day where the suspect resembled my little cousin Anthony. There's probably info that you guys haven't heard because that was only given to Renee the night of by one or two officers, and they knew they messed up. My cousin chose not to stop, probably because he was not in a good position. He was genuinely scared for his life. He was running away, dropped his weapon. You got news somebody else was trying to kill him. As a kid, you don't know what to do. Remember, he's a kid. Sure, he's 17, has a weapon on him, whatever reason. Who knows if he was trying to take his own life. Police are given opportunities, so much power to do things. And it brings me into my next question about the city of Chandler law enforcement's integrity. Police are given such extreme amount of power that varies from directing traffic to potentially killing, and continue to kill if they please. They're also granted with another extreme opportunity, the opportunity to save a life. A mentor of mine from childhood I grew up with he grew up to become a police officer himself. And one thing that sticks with me that he taught me is the meaning of a hero, is what you do when nobody's looking. Real integrity. We all know how absurd and real police brutality is becoming. Whether the department chooses to sweep their doings under the rug or not is on them. But if no action is taken immediately, Chandler will continue to be known as the city where a police officer might kill your child for not having lights on your bike. We all have choices, council members. Please make the right one. We're demanding the department improves training on how to handle civilians with weapons. We demand they release the police officer's name, the full-length, unedited body cams, as well as the ones of the officers that were on the scene that night. I'm not talking about the ones just from when he started the pursuit, when he got shot. I want to know after. We want to know what happened after, when he realized that this was a kid and this wasn't the guy from earlier. None of that has been said. None of that has even known. That needs to be brought to the light. This officer needs to be held accountable for his soul rotting actions. I want to end my comments with a quote from Martin Luther King: "The silence of good people is more dangerous than brutality of bad people." Thank you.
Our next speaker card is from Anissa Madeira. Okay, is she here? Okay.
And again, I'm Raina Allen. I'm from McKinney, Texas.
Can you give us an address from there?
McKinney, Texas, 1717 Angel Parkway.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here, by the way, and taking the time to listen. We do appreciate that. What happened should have never happened. I'm sure most of us here grew up worry-free as a kid. For example, what shoes will I wear to school? Will everyone see this pimple on my face? I am also sure everyone here has a family and would do anything to protect their family. What if your worry as a kid was protecting yourself? How do you defend yourself? How do I make sure I make it home back to mom? Because my neighborhood isn't safe. Anthony's full name was presented to the world for them to go and look at him and make prejudgments. Why hasn't the cop been named or presented? Why can't we go look up his background and past? He was able to go and delete everything and anything that could have quote unquote make him look like a bad person. Kyle Rittenhouse was 17. He had a gun legally. Cops took pictures with him. Cops drove by him. Kyle Rittenhouse shot his gun, actually killed somebody. How is he still alive? How? Why? Is it training? Is it the color of his skin? How did they know how to handle a situation with a 17-year-old? We are demanding answers in the officer's name. The police department had no problem in releasing a minor's name, but had a problem releasing the officer who shot a kid in the back twice. And you'll see, if you guys watch the video, there was no threat to the officer, period. Other than my little cousin running for his life, trying to run home to his mother. Again, he's a minor. We're talking about a child. I don't think this sounds right. For a living, I'm an accountant. I handle reconciliations all day. I deal with tons and tons of problems and solving problems, and I can't solve this one. We can't fully grieve and actually have comfort or closure. Like, we're not talking about losing a pencil or losing a piece of paper. We lost a main source to our family, a child, which I'm sure all of you have. And we really need answers. It's 50, 60 days now. And we are being treated like we don't matter, we don't exist. He didn't exist. He was a great kid, and I'm not going to allow him to be another statistic because of the neighborhood he's in.
Can I ask you to please wrap up?
Yeah, it's okay. Because, I don't have to, it's okay. Because I don't have to face you guys all at the end of anyone's lives. You guys have to answer to who's above. So I can only let that lay that way, but no, we aren't going anywhere, and we are definitely going to continue to fight no matter what it takes. And I'm saying that peacefully. I'm not trying to come to anybody's house or be a threat or do what was done to us, but know that we are a strong family and we are not going anywhere, and we'll continue to fight for answers. So I thank you guys so much.
Thank you much. And my last card is from Sylvia Morales. Sylvia, did you want to come and address? And again, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sylvia Morales. I live in Mesa, Arizona, 1654 West 6th Drive. I'm Anthony's grandmother. And we're here all for the same reason. For our own peace of mind, for his mother's peace of mind, for mine. I was glad to have Anthony for 17 years of his life. He was intelligent, he was athletic, not a troublemaker. He was in the wrong place in the wrong time that evening on January 2nd. We want closure. We want the name of the officer. We want the body cams of, I'm sure there was 10 officers or more, and they all have it on footage, I'm sure. We want every single one of them. Anthony came from a long line of police officers. His grandfather's a 26-year veteran, Scottsdale Police Department. 2 uncles that were policemen, an uncle that was a judge, a grandmother, me, worked for the DOC. He's got another relative that works for the DOC. So I've seen justice, I've seen injustice, but this here isn't an injustice. And that's what we're doing outside. We need and we want closure, and we want to do it the right way. We want to do it the lawful way, the honest way, not dishonesty. That's not what we're here for. That's not what you're here for. That's not why you were all elected, for being dishonest. We're counting on you to help us to get the name of the officer and the footage and what happened, what really happened to my grandson, Anthony. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Council, that concludes the unscheduled public appearances. Our next item on our agenda has to do with current events, and I think our focus tonight is the retirement recognition of our city manager, Marcia Reed. So, Council, I think each of us have opportunity to share, and I will start.
Justice for Tano. Is there no motion from the council? They can, for future meetings, they can. You ready to start protesting all the businesses you guys talked about tonight? It's coming.
I didn't see one. Huh? We did have one. Okay. I do have one more. I apologize. I do have one more speaker card from Roxanne Sandoval. Is Roxanne here, or did she leave? All right. Thank you, Roxanne. Again, state your name and address, and you know the procedure.
Yes, sir. Hi, my name is Roxanne Sandoval. My address is 702 East Chandler Boulevard. And I'm here also for the Cano family. My son was Anthony's best friend. And I just,
am here to request for you guys to show some transparency. It's been over 60 days and this poor lady cannot go home and just grieve her child. They're still trying to get answers that are actually readily available. Just people are refusing to give them. And to me, we all need just to do things that allow us to sleep at night. That could have been my son. That could have been your son. It doesn't matter. He's a 17-year-old child that got shot in the back. Those are factual bases. Shot in the back twice, to be exact, which is just extreme and appalled to me. If it was my 17-year-old child, I don't even know how I would still be able to even sit here, to be honest. However, with that all being said, we sit here and we try and hold these kids accountable and tell them how to act and react. And us ourselves as a community are not holding the Chandler Police Department accountable to be transparent, to release the information. So how can we as a community build and I'm so sorry, this is just so crazy to have this happen to a child in the way it did. And I just want to see the mother have closure and be able to move on and grieve for her child. There's no going back. And the truth is if somebody does something wrong, all we can do at this point is accept accountability and move on so she can mourn and basically move on from the actions. I'm sure this officer did not go out in the day and say, hey, I'm going to go and do this or have this happen. Nobody wakes up. It's an accident. Accidents happen, and we all can live with that. It's just the fact that we need them to say, hey, this is what happened. It was an accident. I'm sure the officer didn't mean to do it, but it happened, and he needs to just be held accountable for that. And thank you very much. I rest with 45 seconds left. Have a blessed night, and I hope you guys all can make some choices and allow her to at least sleep at night. And if you guys can too, because God is good and I have faith that you guys are all good people and the officer probably is too. It's just things happen. We just have to move on from that. And we can't unless there's some closure and some information provided to her. So have a blessed night, guys.
Thank you, Roxanne. Council, obviously this isn't easy and there is a process and a procedure that will bring accountability and investigation. And we will continue to allow the process to continue both internally as well as countywide. So, City Manager, do you want to come down below, please? And I will start, and let's start with Councilmember Orlando and work our way back this way. Any comments? City Manager. Test. From your council, we would like to give you a key to our city. As you know, we don't do these often. I think this is the second one that I've had opportunity to issue, and we are greatly appreciative of your leadership, of what you have done to continue to help the city of Chandler and the ways that you have really built Team Chandler. So heartfelt from all of us.
Thank you.
And for me, I decided to not get you something that you would specifically say, what am I going to do with this? So I hope that you and Brad will have a nice dinner at his new favorite place, The Local. So. All right, let's have All right. Councilmember Orlando, we're going to work back this way.
Okay, Marcia, thank you very much for your years of service, in particular serving Chandler. I learned a long time ago that working in the public sector will never make you rich or wealthy. But when you look back, you'll realize that it was an enriching and a wealthy reward of an experience. And with that, for giving back to our society. So with that, good luck on your retirement and in your future. And from now on, every day will be a Saturday. Good luck, Marcia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Marsha, you made me a promise that you were going to stick around for a little bit. I know. I told everybody, I said, that's the first thing I'm going to say because she made me a promise, but you're always going to say, no, you didn't promise me that. No, you didn't. Well, I really appreciate everything you have done for our city, and I've watched you. I've been around the city, as you know, for 34 years, and those years that you have been at the reign of our city, we have seen such great growth and things that are happening in our city that if it was not for you or your leadership, maybe we could not have seen. But I really, truly want to thank you tonight for everything. You serve with your heart, you serve with your mind and everything. And I also want to take the opportunity to take your husband because I know that it was a sacrifice on his part to allow you to also be part of this family here. And I know your staff will really be missing you, specifically myself. And but I'll be going back over there in your office and see what I can take so that I can remember you. My gift is upstairs in your office, so enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
God bless
Councilmember
you.
Ellis. There's not much left, by the way, in the office.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, Marcia Reed. I don't know how many times you're going to get to hear this, so I want to say it again. City Manager. I actually think that being a city manager is probably one of the most impossible jobs that anybody could have ever dreamed up. And it takes a unique individual to say, I could do that. And you have done it. And when I said earlier tonight that I feel blessed to have been here and been part of this council with you as our city leader during some incredible new growth and development in the downtown and up and down the Price corridor and one business after another, jobs and homes. And I just, you're doing a great debt of thanks, and we're going to miss you. And it is a great life. Retirement is a great life. The only problem is you will never know when you're at work and when you're at home, because there is always something to do. So, but best wishes to you and your family, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you. Marcia, I got to tell you, I've only known one other person with a mind like yours to remember everything else, everything that's ever happened since in this city, and that's my wife. You are remarkable at the things you can remember, and I would sit across from you and ask you questions about something that happened 6 months ago, and you could rattle it off the top of your head, and it was incredible. You know, Chandler is a community of wonderful people, and over the 4 years that I've been here, that community of people, you've created a culture here that everybody in this community, the internal community of the city, cares about the community outside the building, and it's remarkable. And I have to give you credit for that. You know, I always say you're the CEO. You're the CEO of the city, right? You're the CEO of the best city in Arizona, the CEO of the community of innovation. But it really came down to the culture of everybody in here tonight, and as well as the rest of the people, the 1,500 or 1,700 people, I don't know how many it is today, that work for the city. That culture shows through in everything they do, and that's why people love to live here. So thank you. That's all I have to say, and best of luck, and enjoy those road trips back to New Mexico and everywhere else you're going to be going.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
first off, want to say again, like everyone else, thank you for your commitment to the city, and thank you to your husband, your daughter, and your family, all your extended family that lent us to you for a few years. Like Councilmember Rowe said, it's a thankless, it's an impossible job. You've got 7 bosses you got to answer to, and many other directors and peers that you have to balance with outside community partners. And you did a great job at it. So want to thank you for that. The gift I gave you, you'll know exactly what to do with. So yeah, give me a call before you leave, and we can share a story or two over it. So I also want to say that you implemented our vision for the last 6 years since I've been on, 5 years since you've been the city manager, and the temporary city manager before that for almost a year while we were trying to find you as a replacement. And like I said, you got us through a massive crisis. You were on towards the end of the 2009 downturn, but you got us through this unprecedented, I hate using that word, but this COVID crap is what I prefer to say instead. And you showed perseverance, resilience, and leadership. And that is a hard quality to find. So thank you for being with us for as many years as you have. I got asked one time, what's the worst thing that could happen in the city that keeps us up at night? And I said, well, it already happened. Our city manager said she's going to be retiring. So now, but best of luck. Wish best for you and your family, and enjoy.
Thank you.
Best for last.
Marsha. I know everyone was thinking that, but I gotta say, it's been a pleasure working with you. I think when we first started this process back in August when we was elected, I think I was probably a pain in your thorn. I'm like, I'm ready to get started. She's like, wait, there's a process. I don't care about the process. Let's do this now. But I just appreciate your resilience. I appreciate you being able to connect with me in a way that you knew I was excited about the role. You knew I had passion. You knew I wanted to kind of just jump in there and get going. But you really did a good job of just kind of helping me and guiding me through the process. And as I learned more, I became a better person in that transition stage. That's what a good leader does every day. They understand their team, they understand their strength, they understand what they're passionate about, they understand how to maneuver with their strengths. And I think that even though it's been a short time, 8 months of getting to know you, I really feel that being connected to you and just being around you, it really has helped me grow as a council person. And I'm sure your team will say the same about you, that they've grown being around you and they've been able to see themselves further. And I just want to let you know that I really respect you with all my heart. And seeing you go is really sad for me. I was hoping to give you more painful days with me. Uh, but I just want to tell you that a leader recognizes a leader. And I see you, I recognize you, and thank you for your service to Chandler.
Thank you.
And I did give you a gift, and hopefully you can figure it out.
Thank you. Obviously, I'm in my office in a while. And thank you. Thank you. If I can, Mayor.
City manager.
Yeah. So my husband, Brad, is here. I will have to say he worked for city government for 21 years, so not his first council meeting. I know for sure that's not the longest council meeting he sat through, but darn near it, and I warned him ahead. So there you go. As all of you know, I hate speeches, so Matt, I overrode you, and Stacy, I believe, has a video. I would like to extend my thank you to the mayor and the city council for allowing me to serve as city manager of this wonderful city for the past nearly 6 years. I also want to thank Rich DeLugas, the former city manager, for offering me the opportunity to come to Chandler as his assistant city manager in 2013. It has been a great learning experience, and I have appreciated the support both of the mayor and the council and that of the Team Chandler staff. I want to take just a second to recognize the Chandler staff and the executive team. As I look around the table, I have either hired each of you or had a hand in hiring every one of you but one. You are a great team, and I look forward to continuing to hear great things about the best run city in the country. I want all the employees to know that you are valued, and I commend you all on the public service you deliver every day. I certainly want to take a second to recognize those that I don't do anything without their support, and that is my husband Brad and my daughter Mackenzie. We have certainly had the adventure we were looking for here in Chandler and have had the opportunity to experience so much in this great state. I just want to publicly thank you for your support of the late nights and the sometimes the all nights in my career. Our next chapter is already being written, and I look forward to what is to come. Again, I would just like to thank the mayor and council for everything that you have given me the opportunity to do, and my very best wishes to you all and to the Team Chandler staff. Thank you again, and good luck.
And with that, that concludes our meeting.